Mic check. We're live. 3, 2, 1. Yo, what's going on? We're live from Tin Roof. Wednesday, August the 18th, 2021. Appreciate y'all coming out. Appreciate you if you're tuned in digitally, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You guys know the drill. Thanks so much for coming out. We're live once again at Tin Roof. Very excited to be talking Gamecocks football. We got a great crowd so far and looking forward to a fun night. A lot of exciting stuff happening tonight on a Wednesday at Tin Roof. We're giving away some free stuff. As you see, if you're here in person, which the only way to win, by the way, is if you are here in person. I'll show you guys the little example that I brought. Of course, the picture you see behind me every single day in the daily live stream, but we're not giving away this one. The one we're giving away is about 3 times the size of this, a 16 by 20. Very excited. My good friend Jeremy Smith, the Apex Art and Design, bringing it out. We're also giving away some Tin Roof swag. I think maybe some Steel Hand swag. I know for sure Tin Roof swag. We've got swag to give away either way, so be sure to come on out to Tin Roof for your chance to win. It's very simple. We're doing a raffle drawing at the end of the show. So if you're not out here yet, you have till 7 o'clock. We'll do the drawing right at the end of the show, and we'll pick one lucky winner. Again, this thing would look incredible in anybody's man cave, office, living room, your bathroom, I don't know, wherever you want to put it. It's an incredible piece. The hit, as we all know. So definitely come on out for that. I'm going to put this back. All right. So definitely head on out for that. Also, guys, we have 2 incredible guests coming out, both former Gamecocks football players. Pops Frisbee, who was an Army Ranger who played for South Carolina football 2004 and 2005. Also, Corey Miller, who played in the late 80s, a damn great Gamecock in his own right. And as I see Pops Frisbee actually walking in, cool Joe with the glasses on. So, again, taking your questions, comments, calls. We'll get Pops up here around 5:15 or so. Corey Miller going to join us at 6:15. And as we're in the midst of fall camp, just 17 days away, talking Gamecocks football, talking everything else. I guess you want to come up here now, Pops? We'll get you up here now. Do it now. What's going on, man? Yeah, Pops Frisbee in the building. Former Gamecocks football player. What's going on, man? It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, how's it going, man?
Everything's good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, of course, we're talking Gamecocks football. First things first, how have you been, man? You live around the city, and I know you're working and living in Columbia and everything. How's life been for you? Again, it's been I think it's been like 2 years, almost to the date, since I had you in the studio. But,
life's been good, actually. Just a quick walk across the street. I work for the Attorney General here in South Carolina, so a little quick walk here after work, but everything's good.
Yes, we've all come a long way, Pops. I remember when I had you in the studio, I had just moved here. It was like early August. We had just moved here. We were sitting at a black table with a flag in the background, and that was pretty much it. The studio was pretty empty, and now we still have the flag in the background, but now we're at Tin Roof, so things have evolved kind of crazy, right?
Definitely come a long way. Picked up a lot of endorsements along the way. Built your brand by hard work and just consistency, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you, Pops. Obviously, again, really excited to talk Carolina football with you. First things first, though, I do want to talk about your career because, again, you played at South Carolina 2004, 2005. You were an Army Ranger, correct? And I know it was interesting. We were talking back and forth because my brother actually graduated from basic training out in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, a couple weeks ago, which I will never drive out to Missouri ever again, like 12 and a half hours. Way too long to be in the car. But just kind of give people some insight into your story, man, because, again, I know I had you on the show, but it was a little bit ago. So people may have forgotten about that conversation because it's a really complex, interesting story. But just kind of your military career, obviously, and thank you for your service, but your military career and then how you ended up at South Carolina playing football.
Right, yeah. And it, obviously it starts back in high school. I was a 2-3 sport athlete in high school. When I got out of high school, had some decisions to make, wasn't quite sure where I was going. I was recruited in basketball, actually, from Tennessee State, took a trip to Wake Forest. So some pretty significant offers out of high school for basketball. And I played football as well, but decided to join the military on a 3-year tour, turned into a 20-year tour. But I played, all Army sports and things like that all along the way. Football, basketball, and kept in shape. And when it was time to retire and get out, I was coming back to school anyway, and decided Carol narrowed it down to 2 schools. Me being from Pennsylvania, obviously Penn State was in the mix, and then South Carolina were the 2 choices because Columbia happened to be Fort Jackson, happened to be my first assignment. in the military. So that was from 84 to 88, kind of fell in love with the Gamecocks, and obviously grew up a big Penn State fan. So that were my two choices narrowed down. And both Coach Paterno and Holtz at the time, extended me walk-on opportunities. I was here in Columbia, so decided Carolina would be the route to go, and turned out great, obviously.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, man. Again, I remember you saying it. Now you're from Pennsylvania, is that right?
I'm from, right outside of Philadelphia.
So obviously Penn State played a major factor for you, but like you said, the whole Fort Jackson connection and being right here. So you almost kind of grew up Penn State and South Carolina fan. I mean, you grew up watching Gamecocks football, or at least in the, you said what, like late 80s, early, or all throughout the 90s?
No, it would be early 80s, actually.
Early 80s. Okay.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Obviously, being here from 84 to 88, that would have been my college years, initial college years here. So that was the Black Magic years and a couple other years there. So it was a good time for Gamecock football, and just followed them ever since, no matter where I went in the military after that. So.
For sure. Now, social media obviously wasn't a thing. And now you see so many kids that are putting their film out there and getting in touch with coaches, getting in touch with Paterno, Holtz. These are obviously dudes that are very, very busy running a program, building programs. I mean, how did it actually come about? Did you reach out to them? Did you call the offices? Did they already know who you were? What was the path to actually getting because I'm sure you had to go through a workout or some type of something, correct?
Absolutely. And it was a lot different than, you hear a lot about preferred walk-ons now.
Right.
Well, back then they used to have a day when walk-ons would report to Williams-Brice, and then what you would do, they break you down into your position groups, and you would have basically a 3 or 4 hour tryout, and then there'd be 50, 60 guys, and maybe 8 guys would make it as walk-ons at the time. Right. So I did that. I had enrolled early to Carolina, went to the winter walkout, basically tryout at the time, and was one of the 8 guys that were selected at that time. They had no idea I was prior military or anything at that time. Coach Holtz didn't find out till later, after spring practice, actually, my age and everything. So,
that's got to be a compliment, right? They had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you went out there involved with the young guys, if you will. And did you feel like you crushed it? Did you know you're I made the team?
Well, I figured once they broke us down in position groups and stuff, and me having played before and stuff, I kind of knew, well, I'm one of the better guys at this position, at least, so, that, translated into that opportunity there. Now, getting back into the Paterno thing, my brother had gone to Penn State.
Okay.
So knew something somewhat about Penn State, had been up there plenty of time for games, had met Paterno before. So then, of course, obviously, when you petition kind of for a walk-on tryout, they kind of do some research on you, check your high school stuff, check, some of the military stuff. So I got a letter back from him, saying, inviting me to camp for as a walk-on. But like I said, it came down to Carolina and Penn State, so ended up being Carolina.
And were you always wide receiver? Was that always the position?
I was always a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I played a little defensive back, but mostly wide receiver.
Had the hands. You had to get out and actually catch the football. So.
Hands and the speed. So and amazingly, still at my age when I came back, I was still running a 4.5 40. So I was right in there as far as with our receivers. Obviously not a guy like Troy Wilson who was running a 4.3 and stuff like that, but 4.5 is still a pretty good speed.
Yeah. So you were obviously dominating when you were in the military and playing sports with them. I'd imagine. I mean, you kept in great shape.
Room full of trophies for sure.
Right. No doubt. So I'll never forget, man. I think it was 04, fall of 04 is when they had the college game day segment on here. It may have been 05. I think it was 04 though.
Yeah, it was 04.
Yeah, it was 04. And they had the college game day segment on this wide receiver, Pops Frisbee, former Army Ranger, what have you. And they were talking about kind of, your story and how your nickname came to be. And I think it was Troy Williamson that said, again, they had no clue how old you were.
Right.
And then somebody found out and they're like, we just started calling him Pops. So you want to tell people, guys, I think people, they wouldn't really know the origin of the nickname, where that came from.
Yeah, well, originally it was Coach Stockstill, who was our position coach. He's now the head coach out at Middle Tennessee State, but he was the wide receiver coach at Carolina. And after spring camp, when they had found out my age, we were sitting in the receiver room, and Coach Stockdale says, you're how old? And at the time, and he said, you're old enough to be my pops. And then Troy Williamson said, well, you know what? That's what we're going to call you. And I was like, I mean, go with old school, something like that.
Yeah,
But he was like, no, it's going to be Pop. So Troy Williamson is really the one that made it stick. But
Yeah.
Coach Stockstill came up with the
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
And you're a guy, obviously, man. Your competitive nature, and I've talked to you. We've known each other for a while, and everything you do, I feel like you can feel the competitiveness. So I'd imagine for you, it wasn't a situation where you were coming into South going, oh, I just want to be on the team and put on a jersey. Like, I want to play. I mean, I want to be a contributor. And obviously, you're getting pushed by a guy like Troy Williamson and some of the other guys they had on that that roster. I'd imagine that pushed you to be as good as you could be. But just talk about that, competing day in, day out on an SEC roster. I mean, that's that's something that not a lot of people get to do, really.
Yeah, and amazingly at the time, individually on the defense was very good.
Yeah.
You got to realize that at one corner you had Jonathan Joseph. At the other corner was Fred Bennett.
Mhm.
Both NFL guys.
Mhm.
You get past them, you had to deal with Cole Simpson at safety, an NFL guy. You had Lance Laurie, NFL guy at linebacker. You had Rod Wilson,
Mhm.
Chicago
Yep.
Bears linebacker. So almost our whole defense was NFL caliber guys, including some of the linemen, Darryl Shropshire. All those guys had stints in the NFL. So going against them every day was obviously definitely a challenge.
Mhm.
And then just some of the guys I played with, the talented guys, I came in again with Troy Williamson, Matt Thomas. Then the next year we had Kenny McKinley come in, O.J. Murdoch, Jared Cook, a few other guys. So
And Savell moving to wideout with you.
Savell was at
Yeah.
wideout with us on and off,
Yeah.
playing dual threat, with his quarterback duties.
Yeah.
So yeah, just talent all around. And obviously we proved that in 2005 by coming close to really having a 10-win season.
Yeah.
Ended up with a 7-win, but if you look at that stretch of 3 games we lost, we're all by 7 points or less.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Now, first impressions of Holtz. Again, I just had Phil Petty on the show, and I've had others, and it's so interesting hearing the stories about Holtz and Spurrier and these great coaches. But obviously, you played for both. I mean, not many guys get to play for one Hall of Fame coach, much less 2, but you got to do so. Again, like you said, Holtz didn't know how old you were when you got on the team, but first impressions overall with him, being a player for him, I know he was, it's 2 very different styles with Holtz and Spurrier, but they both got results. So what were your takeaways, impressions? And a guy, of course, I mean, you watched coach at Notre Dame and, one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, well Coach Holtz was definitely kind of a motivating guy. Every day he had some type of motivating speech he'd give us, and we had kind of bookend meetings, kind of before practice, after practice, always preaching life after football and stuff like that. And he'd have these meditation sessions. We go to a quiet room, and he'd be the guy that you'd expect some type of yogi or something to be doing, putting you in a trance or something.
Right.
But he'd be the guy, it'd be all dark in there, and he'd be like, sink into the carpet and stuff like that. So it was just he was a hands-on kind of guy, involved kind of in every aspect of the game. And, which was kind of different than Spurrier. Spurrier was more of on the offensive side of the ball, but Spurrier was as sharp as a tack. I mean, the guy, he could look at a play, look at what the defense was running, and change the play on the spot. That's why you saw a lot in 2005, 6, 7. The quarterback out, look to the sidelines. That was Spurrier changing the play.
Right.
So Spurrier would change the play on the fly based on what he saw, and he was just that type of analytical kind of guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that 2004 season, Pops, obviously an up and down year, which, ended with the brawl at Clemson. I'll ask you, though, did because you were just there for 1 year for Holtz, did you have any indication from your vantage point that might have been Holtz's last year? I mean, because I'm not sure at the beginning of the season, fans really had that idea, but as things evolved and we started hearing all the rumors, and of course the week of the Clemson game was crazy. You started to hear Steve Spurrier's interested in the job. And, most people, most Carolina fans, I'm sure you could run a poll of this room. Most people never thought a guy like Lou Holtz would step foot on campus, much less Steve Spurrier. I mean, that was like a pipe dream. Right. But sure enough, it happened. But again, from your vantage point too, and I feel like being an older guy, again, you're going to have a lot more perspective and the maturity, and so you probably had the ability to kind of step back and see things happening, if you will, versus where a young kid, 18 to 21, you're just trying to remember to wake up on time for class and just make it to the workouts and go to practice. You know what I mean? So from your vantage point, when you looked at Carolina football, obviously you were a player, but the state of the program, did you sense a shift, a change coming, like when you're in the midst of it, or?
Yeah, well, I talked to Coach Holtz a lot, during that season. He'd have me in and kind of, pick my mind because obviously I was kind of a bridge, being an older player, but being in there, in the room there every day with the young guys. So he would kind of pick my brain as far as, what the guys were thinking and what.
Because he knew you were going to walk the straight and narrow. He knew you were going to do the right thing.
What he could do to improve things or what he might have needed to be more lenient on. Whether it be not having the guys wearing suits or letting them grow a little facial hair or even longer hair. He was a stickler for haircuts. If guys came in with longer hair, he'd have them cut it. So kind of let things get a little more loose that 2004 season. And also, talk with him. He was his wife was having problems with her illness. So you could kind of see a little bit of the writing on the wall, but still towards the end of the season, still a little bit of a surprise that, that was it. But, talking to him all season, you kind of see it coming a little bit.
Right. Now, it's a black eye on the history of the rivalry, but I have to ask you, like, when you signed on to play college football, did you ever fathom you'd be in the middle of something like what happened Carolina-Clemson in 2004?
No, not really. I knew it was, and I didn't know the full extent of the rivalry, really, being growing up a Penn State fan. So having to learn about that first season and stuff like that, and the intensity of it, but still not getting to that level. You didn't think it would get to that level. And it's funny because the other night they had the Malice in the Palace.
Night before. And they've actually got a Netflix documentary on that now. Yeah.
But see, what people don't realize, that game was the night before the Clemson-Carolina brawl. All the guys were in our hotel rooms in Greenville watching this. So I think that played some influence on it.
Right.
And then some of the conditions going into the game. So we take the bus from Greenville because they don't have hotels in Clemson where you could stay big enough for a team. So we took the bus from Greenville into Clemson in the morning. And then there's people lining the road and giving us nasty gestures and stuff like that. And then we get to the stadium, the same thing's going on. We get into the stadium. And at that time, this was before their locker room remodel. So they probably had the worst facilities in college football.
Right.
I mean, the whole team couldn't fit in their locker room.
Right.
We literally had some guys changing out in the concourse because, locker room wasn't big enough to hold the whole team. So, that, and at that time, their locker room was only divided from the visitor locker room by a thin wall, just some plasterboard. So there's talking and knocking and stuff going back and forth between the teams pregame. So stuff was kind of nasty and out of hand. And then what happened before the game, I think really heightened emotions too, because, they had the band playing and their balloons getting ready to go. And the South Carolina team at the time, Demetrius Summers had gone to the foot of the hill. And the running back coach at the time said, well, if he's going down, everybody else needs to get down there. So the whole team goes down there and they have this gate that they open.
Right.
So they're playing their music. They get ready to run down the hill. They can't get out the gate. Carolina team's at the bottom of the hill. So everybody's stacking up on this hill and they can't get out. And so the guards had to come down and move the gate. And then you had that confrontation. So things escalating throughout the whole game, kind of cheap shots going on.
Right.
So it kind of built up to that moment. It wasn't just one thing that, set that off.
Yeah, and then all hell breaks loose at the end of the course. And obviously that led us into Lou Holtz's retirement. Steve Spurrier gets hired again. Like I said, most guys don't even get the chance to play for one Hall of Fame coach, much less two, but you did. Again, I know it can be, because you were considered at that point a walk-on, correct? Yeah, you were a walk-on. You went through the walk-on trials, all that stuff. So there's a lot of uncertainty when there's a coaching change for scholarship guys, much less walk-ons. Like, what was your thought process going through that, as far as, were you worried about having a spot? Or, I mean, what was the transition like for you?
I wasn't really worried, because Coach Holtz, prior to him, those last few weeks, had offered me a scholarship.
Okay, all right.
So I turned it down because I already had the GI Bill. And I said, well, let another player use it that can use it. I didn't need the scholarship. So I turned down the scholarship. So I was kind of fine in knowing that, I had built my way up into where, I added some value to the team, and I, kind of was secure in my spot. So I wasn't too worried about when he came on board. I just had to, play ball. That was about it.
Right. And of course, when there's a new coaching change, we're seeing it now, right? There's a culture shift. And what was the culture shift like with Spurrier? Because again, I mean, he came in and he started to clean house a little bit. I mean, a couple of those household names that you mentioned, they weren't there anymore. They got booted from the team for one reason or another. And I mean, it was an immediate shift. You know, we've all heard the story of him ripping down the Beat Clemson signs and all of that. But what were the things you noticed most in regards to him changing the culture?
Yeah, well, number one, that was a big point of emphasis, accountability. He wasn't going to have guys on the team that weren't personally accountable for their actions, and you know, because a lot of those guys were upperclassmen, and other guys followed them.
Right.
So he wasn't going to have guys that were setting bad examples. And another emphasis was that, look, we're an SEC team. Clemson was fine and well, and you know, obviously to beat them puts a feather in your cap at the end of the season. But the focus was going to be the SEC. He figured if we take care of the SEC, you know, Clemson's not going to be a problem. So, you know, again, he came in and he ordered, you know, all those Beat Clemson signs, and that were throughout the facility, and even on people's gear and stuff like that, you had Beat Clemson stuff. All that stuff was gone. You know, he didn't want to see that. He said, you know, when we get to that game, we'll focus on that game. But other than that, we need to focus on the SEC and, you know, getting to Atlanta.
Right. Now, Pops, going through the spring and fall and everything with Coach Spurrier and leading up to that kickoff, that game against UCF in 2005, I was actually fortunate enough to be there. And I remember that preseason, obviously, it kind of reminds me of this preseason when we're going through here with the positive momentum and the energy, and everybody's so hyped up and, you know, so ready for kickoff, and you feel like the stadium's going to explode when we actually get there. But what was it like, again, being a player? I mean, just, you know, I'm sure you can feel that. I mean, I remember going to the spring game, man, spring of 2005, and I remember it was like the first play of the spring game, and South kind of dropped back for a pass, and the whole stadium stood up. It's like, oh my God, we're throwing the ball. Like, I can't believe it. It was like, and there was like 35, 40,000, the whole lower bowl field for a spring game. It was crazy.
So that kind of set the tone as far as what we were expecting from the crowd, that we knew it was going to be a, you know, special season as far as the crowd was concerned. And yeah, obviously as offensive players, you knew there was a new sheriff in town, that things were going to change. You know, we were going to be able to, you know, throw the ball. Spurrier's whole concept was, be a great route runner, because this offense is designed that if you run the route that you're supposed to run, somebody is going to be open based on, you know, how he set up the route tree, how it was run. So just run your route, you know, run it with expertise, and somebody's going to be open, you know, and it's all on the quarterback as far as accuracy and being confident enough to put the throw in there. But, you know, that's what it was about. And we knew that was happening. And it was great, again, for our offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, run the route you're supposed to run, be where you're supposed to be, and the ball will be there, or it better be there, or he's going to put somebody in that's going to put it there.
Absolutely.
And also, he's going to put a receiver in that will be there if you're not there. I've talked to so many former receivers under Spurrier, and, you know, again, he was hard on the quarterbacks, but, I mean, like Mo Brown, one of your former teammates, I believe, you know, just talking with him, and, you know, he's like, you do not want to drop a pass and be seen on film doing so, because Spurrier will
rewind.
The master of the clicker. So, yeah, anyways, I want to talk about, of course, the Troy game, though, for you. That was the game you had the reception, obviously. And, again, you know, maybe something small to some, but I'm sure for you, and I know we talked about it last time I had you on the show, it really stands out as just you know, very symbolic for all the hard work you put in and defying the odds, if you will. Just talk about what that meant to you then, what it means to you now, because obviously, again, you're forever a piece of Gamecock football history.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, you know, you want to play as much as you can. So whether it was special teams or, you know, getting in offensively, you know, that was the goal, you know, get on the field. So, you know, obviously that was a great moment for me, you know, and I remember the play was called Blast Possible Auburn, which is it could be a handoff, a fake handoff, and then you're looking for that tunnel screen. But if it's not there, the quarterback has, I run it kind of like a run pass option. Quarterback has a option to run or, you know, or call it off, check it off. So Antonio Hefner had come into the game, and Hef wasn't going to check it off for anything, regardless. So he looked out at me. I remember him looking out at me, and I remember Matt Thomas saying, you know, he always was giving us these little pointers about what to do at receiver, just like defensive back picks up on things that receivers consistently do. Receivers pick up on how defensive back plays. So he would say, Matt Thomas always say, you get out there, and he said, look over at the quarterback. He said, then point down the field. He said, because that put something in the D-back's mind that, hey, there may be a long pass coming here. So the D-back may drop a couple steps off you just, to anticipate that. So sure enough, I look over at half, I point down the field, and the D-back backs up about 3 steps. So I said, I know, we got him.
Right.
Because it's a tunnel screen, which caused the inside receivers coming out the block. We got him. He's already 3 steps off. So sure enough, calls the play and fell right into plan. Lamoriel Williams go out there, throws a block on him, tunnel screen, 10 yards. So, I mean, it was, a great call. And like I said, a play that I won't forget for sure.
Yeah. Now, Pops, did you expect the reception you got nationally? Because, again, you went on Jay Leno and I think Letterman also. I mean, did you expect that to happen? I mean, in your wildest dreams, did you ever expect to be on like national TV, on talk shows? Because I mean, it blew up. It really did.
Yeah, absolutely not. Because my goal was just to play ball, kind of stay under the radar. But once the media got a hold of it, it was a whole new story. I mean, we had movie producers showing up at the house. We had again, like I said, we did the Today Show, Tonight Show, the Late Show, ESPN Game Day. Jane Pauley show at the time, Regis in the morning. I mean, there was so many things that we had to turn down shows. I mean, you turned down Oprah, all kinds of people you had to turn down because there just wasn't enough time. And to do the show, they had to get special exemption from the NCAA because there was nobody at the time, no college player ever at the time in season had gone and done a late night show.
Right.
So the deal was, number one, Coach Holtz in 2004, same with Spurrier, but you could do the show, but you're not going to miss practice. So we had to go fly up on the off day. We had to schedule the show on the off day, fly up, record the show, and then take a red eye back. Because I remember it was the Tonight Show was the week of, the Late Show was the week of the Alabama game. So we had to fly up on the off day, record the show, and fly back so we could be at practice the next day. So it kind of went like that. You got fit in the shows where you could. But yeah, no idea that would blow up like that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Pops, one of the things I've always respected about you as we move into the current day South Carolina football and everything with the program is you always speak your mind. You don't hold back. You're very blunt about things, similar to and I actually really, really appreciate that. You tell it like it is. So I talked about Spurrier and his preseason and everything and the hype and the momentum. And, I think it's very different. I don't want to say that this preseason has been exactly like that. Shane Beamer is his own person, like whatever. I don't want to try to compare and contrast those two people. But in regards to, and we'll start first with the hiring overall of Shane Beamer. Again, the last regime, the previous coaching staff, whatever, you make the move. What was your thought process in regards to what South Carolina needed to go after? And then when they hired Shane Beamer, because his name certainly wasn't the first name that came up. You had the typical Freezes, Napiers, Chadwells, whatever, but Shane Beamer gets hired. Of course, I know you're on the, USC Letterman. They had the Zoom call, and they were talking to all you guys about what you want, who you want in there. And certainly Beamer was a very, very very popular pick, I should say, amongst the former players. But your overall thoughts on, the overall change for Carolina football and then Beamer getting the job, your initial thoughts, and then overall just how he's done this preseason. I think he's certainly solidified, all of everybody's good feelings in regards to the direction of the program under his leadership.
Yeah, well, of course, when you're going through a coaching search like that, a national coaching search, obviously the first thing you think of, and especially being spoiled with Holtz and Spurrier back-to-back, obviously you're thinking, well, you're going to go after the top flight coaches, and, that's who you're going to get. You're going to get one of those guys. And it just it didn't turn out that way just because of the movement in college football at the time, who was going where, some guys waiting for opportunities that they felt were going to open up later. So when it got down to it and, the rubber met the road there, Beamer became a good pick because obviously he was familiar with the program, familiar with the kind of culture that Steve Spurrier was trying to set while he was here. He's been able to take a lot of the good things and kind of sift through what was bad and get rid of that. Really focused on recruiting, which is going to be key for South Carolina because it's all about recruiting here now because we know we have some of the best facilities in the country. We know we have one of the better locations to come to for students. Yeah. It's just it's about recruiting now. And
Jimmy's and Joe's.
That's it. So Beamer has done an outstanding job of just getting his foot in the door, staying in contact with recruits, being a recruit type of guy. Some of these older coaches, they kind of lose touch with kind of recruits, or they become guys that don't necessarily want to get in the mix of the recruiting and kind of go off their name a little bit. And that's not Beamer. And that's a good thing, because kids nowadays need that. They need to see that you're invested in them, that you're involved in the process. And it's paying dividends for South Carolina for sure.
Now, you mentioned recruiting, and Pops, I'm going to hit you with these hard-hitting questions, because I saw you talking about this kid, I think either today or yesterday, and I want to pick your brain on this, because you're right, it is all about recruiting. And there's hits, and there's misses, and there's in-betweens in recruiting. And a guy you tweeted about recently was Dak Joyner. And his career has just been very polarizing and very interesting. And I know, obviously, you've never been a head coach, but obviously you've watched plenty of football and followed recruiting and followed the South Carolina program. How does that happen where a kid like Dak Joyner, who is such a highly regarded prospect at the quarterback position specifically now, has come in, really never gotten any significant time? He's changed positions. And you made the point, of course, getting into this team, because I've been talking about we've had the honeymoon phase of the preseason, everything's, sunshine and rainbows. Well, now we're getting into fall camp, and we're starting to kind of see, it's been a very auspicious start to camp. I'm just going to go ahead and say it's been kind of, some unexpected twists and turns so far. When a guy like Zeb Norland, who was a GA and not even on the roster, starts taking snaps, and you made the point of and I know the point you were trying to make, it's frustrating, because it's like you have this kid who I believe he was either Elite 11 or really, really close to it. I mean, he was highly regarded either way. How can you have that big of a miss in recruiting? Or is it just purely a lack of development? Because, I think we'd all agree there was probably some development issues with the previous staff. But, it's – yeah.
And when you get a kid like that, a former Mr. Football in South Carolina, you have to point somewhat to development and or evaluation.
Right.
One of those two things is off, or one of them was wrong, because you don't recruit a dual threat quarterback, not this day and age, especially in SEC football, that you feel can throw. And to me, that's what I see, is that they don't have the confidence that he can throw an accurate ball, or maybe arm strength, or make all the throws that are capable. But you have to know that through evaluation.
Yeah.
That shouldn't, however you did throughout, there's not many. There are a few that were high school quarterbacks that were in a running offense and didn't really get to show off their arm, and they develop into great college quarterbacks. Very few that happens. But, Joyner, you would think they would know, what they were getting. And to see it go this many years where, he's gotten onto the field and people made the comment that, we really didn't see him move the team. And I said, well, what package was implemented where he could move the team?
Right.
I didn't see him throwing down the field. He was put in some of these run option, packages and wildcat, offenses. But you never saw him really drop back pass after pass and be able to throw the ball around. And really, to get a feel for what a quarterback like that can do, he has to be able to do that. Yeah. So in a way, I think that's not fair to the kid in that aspect. Yeah. And at this point, I say keep him at receiver. Yeah. He's been working there a full year, got that under his belt, got a little confidence in himself. Let the kid play receiver, and you want to run him in wildcat a little bit, fine, but.
That's what I was going to say. I certainly don't think. Yeah, I don't think either of you, either of us are sitting up here, and I'm certainly not saying that Dak should be QB1. I think it's just he is one of the more polarizing guys on the football team, just because. And again, he's one of a few, or you could even say many, that came into South Carolina with the expectations and the hype. And I said it a couple of weeks ago that under the previous regime, I already wasn't a diehard recruiting guy, but I started liking recruiting even less, because it got really old, getting so hyped up and amped up about guys, and every recruit's a sleeper, right? Everybody's really good, and they get on campus and they just disappear. And it was like a guy like Dak, you're like, it just didn't make sense. It didn't compute. So getting your perspective on it's really interesting, man, because I think Dak Joyner is one of those guys who's going to really benefit from a change, if you will. I just think he has a skill set. You got to get the football in his hands. I would hate to see him leave South Carolina and never really had the opportunity to utilize his athleticism, his God-given ability to some degree. Because, he does have a skill set, whether people want to see that or not. If you will.
Absolutely. He has the skill set. I think he's going to do great in the slot between him and the transfer from Georgia Tech. I'm really keying on those two guys as really being able to do work in the slot. And if that happens, and some of these guys that are on the outside start producing, the Ortre Smiths, the Rodriguez David, if they have to stay injury free, number one, but they got to start producing is the key. And guys like Joyner and the kid from Georgia Tech,
Amarian Brown,
are going to make their jobs a lot easier, because when a guy like that has to occupy, safety has to be occupied with a slot guy, and he can't be covered by a linebacker, that just opens, gives a lot of one-on-one or holes for these guys to work in. So I think that's going to create opportunities definitely for the receivers in the offense.
And I want to get more into receivers in a second, but again, we're talking about this football team. First things first, you have your post-game show. Let everybody know what that post-game, the fifth quarter show, right, after every single game?
Obviously, fifth quarter post-game show. That's on 103.5 WVOC. Yeah. We come on immediately after the last whistle. So it's me, Justin Hall, Rob Sanders, from the WVOC studios over on Greystone. So, we come in again. We're not the university's post-game show, so we can say whatever we want. We say how we feel. We don't wear garnet-colored glasses. If you're doing good, we're going to call it good. If we need to critique you, we're going to critique you. Now, that's just how it is, and that's how it should be. As long there's a difference between critique and criticize.
Right.
It's a fine line.
Oh yeah.
But it's there, and you have to critique to be a fair analyst for sure.
Yeah, and something you'll be talking a lot about, I feel, on that post-game show is the quarterback position. That's where I want to start. And it's so funny, Pops. I was talking last week. I think literally sitting right here, maybe talking to this audience about, I'm not going to try to make a quarterback debate, if you will, that's not there. Luke Doty's QB1. We have no drama at quarterback. All's fine and dandy. How much can change in a week, Pops? I wake up Saturday and I have a DM from somebody, hey, man, just want you to know Luke Doty's on crutches. He broke his foot. And I'm like, all right, it's way too early for somebody to be messing with me on a Saturday. Like, please don't do this. This is not funny. Right. It's not a funny joke. And, of course, the chaos ensues on social media. Thankfully, it's not as bad as, we initially thought. It sounds like I think he'll probably miss the first game, I'd have to imagine, but it sounds like he should be back after that. But specifically, though, Luke, I think we expect him to be the quarterback at least probably 11 of the 12 games this season. I know we haven't seen a large sample size. You talked about having a mobile quarterback, though, and a dual-threat quarterback. And I feel, I know, again, not a large sample size. I feel like one of the worst narratives surrounding Gamecocks football is that he can't throw the ball. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying he's an elite passer, and he still has to prove himself as he can be a week-in, week-out, good, solid passer against SEC defenses. But I think there are people out there that literally think he can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field, and it's just inaccurate. But from what you've seen from Luke Doty, the athleticism jumps off the page. He runs a 4.40. We all know that. But things you like about his game, things you want to see him improve on overall. Again, you played the receiver position, and there's a lot of question marks surrounding both those units. But overall, Luke Doty leading this football team, how do you feel overall about his game, the young signal caller?
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with him. And I think, obviously, from a receiver standpoint, you want your quarterback to be number one, accurate, and number two, efficient. And that's where a quarterback like Doty can fall into kind of a mold of a Connor Shaw, where he has enough mobility to get you out of trouble, but he can also be efficient. And Shaw got better as he went along.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
He can make, Doty can make those type of throws. So once you get his confidence, he gets the accuracy down, and then he's efficient in moving the team. You had a great guy in here on your last podcast in Phil Petty who did absolutely that. He was he controlled the game. Yeah. Was
field general. I don't like game manager. Field general.
Field general, but he was efficient.
Command the offense.
He was efficient. He was actually a GA when I came in.
Yeah.
So he was here, and that's what you need your quarterback to be. They don't have to be. That's how Mac Jones started off at Alabama. That was the tag on him. Could manage the game, and field a game manager. Turned out to be a great quarterback for Alabama. Obviously, he had some more high caliber weapons, but it's the same kind of scenario. You get comfortable with your talent, and then you kind of have to show what you can do.
Right,
and from an efficiency and accuracy standpoint, that's what we're going to be looking at for Doty.
No doubt. Well, like I said, Luke probably not going to play week one. What do you make of what's going on right now with the quarterback position? Because you got Jason Brown, who is coming from St. Francis. He's never taken a snap at this level. Colton Gauthier, which it is Gauthier, we know now, by the way, how to pronounce it. True freshman, has never taken a snap at the University of South Carolina. Connor Jordan, who's a walk-on, all respect to walk-ons, but he's a walk-on. And then Zeb Norland, who recently came in as a GA in June. He's not even on the roster to start fall camp. And all of a sudden, Shane Beamer comes out and says, oh, by the way, we have a new quarterback. We just asked him to go suit up. And, to be fair, he has played his college football. It's funny, I was joking about this on our live stream earlier today. The one thing, if you'd have told me I'd been doing this a couple of days ago, I'd have been like, what are you talking about? I didn't think I was going to wake up this morning and be watching Zeb Norland film from Iowa State. So I had no idea I'd be doing that. But, what do you make of the quarterback position right now? Because, again, you played on some teams where there was quarterback battles, and it's, kind of one of those things that as a receiver, you just got to do your job. But, this is a football team that wants to know who it has to look to. And I think everybody knows that when Luke Doty's healthy, he's QB1, bottom line. So this team going into week one, thankfully it's an opponent that, you should be able to lean on the run game. And either way, I think no matter who's back there, you should be able to have some success. But, what do you make of just kind of what's happened in the last, 4, 5, 6 days with the Gamecocks quarterback position?
Well, obviously there's a little bit of craziness, but I find it as an opportunity to get a backup, some playing time that first game, get those jitters out, get him confident in himself. You want a confident backup, that's for sure. So, and I think, like you said, Doty will miss that first game, but I think he'll be ready for that second game. He'll take that spot back unless you just see some type of Wally Pipp performance, out of either Jason Brown, who I think will probably be the backup, or another guy on that first day, that first game. So other than that taking place, I think it's a great opportunity to see what you have at quarterback. Hopefully we can get more than the backup playing in that game and get some snaps under these guys' belt. Something that along the way, even through the Holtz and Spurrier area especially, was not a lot of snaps available for backup quarterbacks. So we didn't have a lot of those guys develop. So the better you can develop them, the better it is for South Carolina in the long run. Yeah.
Now, I mentioned they're going to lean on the running game. And obviously, when you were at South Carolina, you guys had some top-tier backs and Mike Davis, Dacus Turman, some others. And, you look at this year's squad. Kevin Harris, Marshawn Lloyd, White, Rashad Amos, who I actually think did really well in limited time last year. It's got to be one of the best running back rooms in the entire country, right? I have to think so. Does anything – are you a little worried putting – so much expectations on Marshawn Lloyd, a guy who's never played in a college game before? I know that's like the one fear people have is like, he does have all the hype. And I really believe, and this is no knock to Kevin, but I think if Marshawn's healthy, I think he's the most talented back on the roster.
But see, that's the luxury you have because we know what Harris can do.
Right.
And Harris is the X factor. Lloyd doesn't have to come out gangbusters doing everything, proving everything at one time. He can kind of feel himself into the game. I think Harris will probably initially start with the bulk of the carries, and they'll work Lloyd in there. We always call it getting lathered up. You want to get that running back lathered up, and Harris is one of those guys that gets stronger as the game goes on. That hasn't always been the case here at South Carolina, but he's one of those guys. And Lloyd, a great change of pace guy, also a physical runner. I think it's gonna do him well to kind of work his way up to carries and let Harris kind of be that cowbell back those first couple of weeks, or maybe, a game or two at least, get that under his belt, and you're going to take off. Because like you said, talent, beyond belief out of that running back room.
Yeah. Now, see, I see you brought some notes, by the way, Pop. So I want to talk. These are the receivers right here we have in front of us. Brooks, Dak, Josh Vann, E.J. Jenkins, Amari, the whole list of them, the whole lot of them. There's names on names, Rico Powers. All kinds of guys, right? I've been saying forever, tons of guys, got to find some dudes. You talked about Amari Brown, who I think is going to step up and be, I think, wide receiver one. At least he has that potential, what he did at Georgia Tech. You talk Dak Joyner. But when you look at the rest of these guys, again, you got Leggett listed there. I think E.J. Jenkins obviously is going to be a big-time red zone threat. Is there one guy or two guys you look at and you're like, all right, it's time for this guy to take the next step and come into his own and be a big-time playmaker out there?
Well, number one, you're looking at guys like Jalen Brooks. Yeah. You're looking at guys like Leggett, because these are supposedly guys, especially in Leggett, who can take the top off of defense.
Speed.
You have to be able to stretch the field in the SEC. That's how you're most competitive. That's how you cause the most problems, by creating holes either in the zone or creating problems in man-to-man defense. And you got to have guys like Leggett, like Brooks, to stretch the field, to have great hands and make the catches. You got guys like Jenkins, who are going to be key on fade routes. You shouldn't be able to guard that guy. You're going to have a 6'4" corner to be able to guard that guy on toss-up balls. Going to be great in the red zone if he's utilized correctly. And then you got your slot guys who have a combination of speed and power. So but you have to have your outside receivers loosen it up for you guys, and they have to produce. The Trey Smiths, the keys you see I have on here are injuries. Yeah. A lot of those guys that I mentioned, Davis, Trey Smith, Leggett, even to some extent, Van, all injury prone guys. Yeah. So if they can stay away from that, you can rotate a lot of these guys in. I think you're probably not going to have more than an 8 or 9 man rotation. Yeah. After that is kind of defeating your purpose of getting guys in the groove. So we're going to look to narrow it down to 8 or 9 good guys. And that's who's going to get the bulk of the receptions this year.
Yeah, and I think the tight end position, of course, is going to play a major role in the passing game. We're talking about Jenkins. I think he's going to do both. But the Jaheim Bells, the Nick Muses, the Eric Shaws, the Kevion Mullins. I mean, hey, if guys aren't stepping up at wide receiver, and even if they are, I mean, I think Nick Muse is the guy that's probably going to be your best friend on third down and 7s, 3rd and 6s. Let me find my safety valve. There he is. I can get the first. We'll keep the chains moving, which – in the end of the day, that's what obviously matters for the offense.
Yeah, and a couple of guys had nice catches last year. They are athletic.
Muse really came in. I know he gets a lot of crap from people, and I think some of it he likes to bring on himself, right? Yeah. But, I mean, when you look at it last year, he really did come into his own last year. I mean, those games he had against Mizzou and Georgia, he looked like a big-time player.
Yeah, and I believe Mullins was injured last year, correct, for a little bit?
Yeah, after the LSU games when he had the big catch and he got injured in that game. I liked what I saw from him early, too.
So he's a guy you're going to look to. And even at times, I think Jenkins got a big enough body to line him at receiver sometimes and cause major problems for linebackers or anybody trying to cover him off the line. So, there's another guy you can throw in. So, yeah, there's going to be a key to have key receptions out of those tight ends and get this offense moving.
Yeah, for sure. Now, defensively, Pops, again, you're somebody that'll tell it like it is. Is there any way the Gamecocks can be worse defensively in 2021 than they were last year? Is there any way?
Barring injury, I don't think you can be worse than they were last year, just from an inexperienced standpoint. Yeah. And, there were some good guys on that defense last year with Jones. And
a couple of them in the NFL right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and we've always been that way individually. It's just in totality. There's been some weaknesses across the Gamecock defense, but the key is knowing if you put yourself in the right position and in the right defensive plays, then it's all about execution. We had problems with that last year. I think these guys with a year under their belt and more a different defensive scheme I haven't talked to defensive guys, but if it's become easier where the guys are not thinking as much, you simplify it, kind of like Auburn did for on the offensive side where they had Cam Newton. You're holding up the little signs to kind of simplify it for them. Hey, you make things easier, and guys play a lot faster, a lot smarter, and you see a lot more plays being developed because guys can then ball hawk and stuff like that because they're confident in their game, confident in where they're supposed to be on the field, and it pays dividends.
Yeah. Now, you played for a first-year head coach in Spurrier, and I don't see Steve Spurrier being a guy that says, it's our first year, guys. If we can just make a bowl game, it's a good season. Like, I feel like Spurrier's a guy. He's going to set, all types of goals, and Spurrier's a competitor. He wants to win as many as he can, but what this team is going through and sort of what this program's going through and being in the first year of a new head coach and talking about first-year expectations for Beamer and company. What you want to see. Because, again, I'm curious, what the messaging was under Spurrier in the first year because, it's calling it a wash is such a disrespect to the guys in the locker room. I don't even want to do that. But it's year one, right? It kind of is what it is. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. It's going to be a very interesting year, if you will. And I've told people, hey, buckle up. There's going to be – I think this team at moments is going to flash, and I think there's going to be moments where it's like, we got to go recruit. Bottom line. I mean, what do you expect? What do you want to see from Shane Beamer's football team this season specifically?
Well, first of all, it's good to have key expectations. You want those expectations. Right. You want a team to believe in themselves and have these goals. Spurrier's goals from the beginning were always SEC East, SEC Championship, and then New Year's Bowl, or those were his goals.
Right.
Seriously, those were up on the board. Those were his goals. So, and then obviously SEC games ahead of all else. But you pick those goals and you take it one game at a. You always say this, but you really do. You play it one game at a time, and you take your accomplishments as they come and you build on them. And for this team, that's going to be key. You want to come out the gate. You want to put your easy teams, and not saying any of these teams are easy when you're in your first year, but you want to put the teams like Eastern Illinois, you got to put those guys away. East Carolina already game 2 is going to be, we know it could be up and down, but it would be nice to put those guys away, and then you start getting into SEC play with some type of confidence. So that's what you want to build towards. And number one thing, you want to be competitive game in and game out. I
think that's what we didn't see.
There's
before,
no room for not being competitive.
Yeah.
That's where things start falling apart.
Right.
When a team's not competitive,
people start really questioning what's
going on.
going
You lose your
on.
fan base.
Right.
You lose your guys on the team. The coaching staff gets a little down. So you want to see competitiveness from this team.
Now, Pops, before I get you out of here, I mean, I'm locked in 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC, but I think this team's going to a bowl this year. I think it is realistic. I loved Shane Beamer's messaging over the weekend and what he was saying about the doom and gloom thing. Also, I think it's very important to recognize from where you and I sit, and when you're talking about the football team, breaking down the football team, hey, if you lose your starting quarterback throughout the season, there aren't many teams that aren't going to feel that just a little bit. But when you look at this team, again, I think 6-6 is very realistic, and I think there's a path to it. I think, obviously, as you just mentioned, you have to take advantage of the front half of the schedule with some of these more winnable games, because the back half, even though I do believe you're going to get better week to week to week to week, I don't know if you're really going to see it because the schedule gets so much tougher in the second half. But, if you got a record prediction, you can throw it out there. Or when you look at this season, though, best case, worst case, I mean, again, not many people that sit up here on this stage, man, they want to throw a record prediction out. So if you'd like to, I mean, you're more than welcome.
And I'm kind of with you because I think 6 wins is reasonable.
Yeah.
I would, obviously, you've got more lofty goals.
Right, of course.
I think 7's capable, but that 6 wins is reasonable for this team. If you start falling below, you start getting into 5-4, you start getting in 4.
Well, I don't think you can have expectations below making a bowl game, because once you do that, you fall into Vandy territory.
Yeah.
Apologize if there's any Vandy fans here, but you fall into Vandy. Like, if your expectations start, well, I hope we just win 3 games. It's like, I mean, you might as well not even have a program anymore.
And what do you always say when you're looking at your schedule? You always say, what do you say? You beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Yep. So you look at that schedule and you say you got 3 or 4 teams on there that you're supposed to beat.
You should have 4 wins. Bottom line, should have 4 wins.
You're supposed to beat those guys.
Yep.
Then the next step is to you say, well, then you win half of the games you're not supposed to win, or your
swing games,
or half the games of teams that you weren't picked to beat, or you win 1 or 2 of the games of the teams that you weren't picked to beat. You look at it at that aspect, and that's where you start getting into 6-7 win time frame, because anything above that's gravy. You start winning more than that, start getting into 8-9 game wins, and you're talking about big time success.
From your lips to God's ears, Bob.
So
from your lips to God's ears.
That's about that 6 range is probably a reasonable expectation, and obviously fans and everybody else, we have loftier goals.
I think to get to a bowl game, I think you have to have really, really, really good quarterback play, or at least serviceable field general type of quarterback play. To get beyond that, what do you think you have to have? Is there something that points out?
To get beyond that, you would just have to, your running back room would have to really not only live up, because they're actually playing with a chip on their shoulder, because this running back room's not getting a lot of respect nationally.
Kevin Harris is not getting a lot of love, my friend.
Nationally, when they should be. You're talking about the leading rusher in SEC, and then a guy coming in who's a 4- or 5-star guy that's expected to be, full speed. So that's what, you're looking at. If that running back room and the offensive line performs, and you could really overachieve if that running back room can carry this team, keep games close, and that running back room takes over by keeping games close, by managing that clock, there may be some surprises along the way.
For sure. Pops, I'm going to get you out of here. Noah, you had a question. So those tuned in digitally, Noah asked about the loss of Karan Prunty. The secondary as a whole being a question mark, major question mark. I mean, your thoughts on the secondary, and because I do agree with Noah. I think in games where the defense is all going to come down to the defensive line, getting pressure on the quarterback, and if there are games where you can't get there, like week 3, if JT Daniels has time to throw, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I mean,
if your defense is not getting pressure on the quarterback, you're going to have problems.
Right.
To his point, Prunty's actually, that's a big loss.
Yeah.
But I think what's going to be more important for South Carolina on defense this year, which we didn't see a lot of great play out of last year, is the safety position. The safety position makes up for a lot of mistakes. I played with a guy named Cole Simpson that everybody knows well around here. The guy made up for a lot of mistakes, and we had some great corners, but he still made up for a lot of mistakes. He was a ball hawk as well, a great tackler. That safety position can make a big difference in how the South Carolina secondary performs this year. If we get better play out of the safety, it's going to go a long way towards at least keeping this South Carolina defense in games.
Yeah, I agree. I don't feel like we've had great safety play in quite a while, which is kind of crazy when your previous head coach was coaching the position. Either way, Pops, it's been a pleasure, man. Appreciate it. Let's definitely get you back on the podcast sometime, but I appreciate you coming out. Obviously, great conversation. Thank you for your service. And, dude, looking forward to, obviously, I mean, we're, great follow on social media, by the way. All your comments, doesn't hold back. And, if nothing else, it's going to be a hell of a ride in this first season and beyond the Shane Beamer era. But, again, man, it's always a pleasure. Seriously, thank you for taking the time.
Looking forward to this season, and I know the fans are for sure.
And tune into the post-game show. Tune in the post-game show. You guys take calls and everything?
We take calls. We walk a lot of people off the ledge after the games. And
or just let them go. Let them rant. Just let them rant.
And we let them rant, let you go, get your points across, and we chime in as well. So fifth quarter post-game show, 103.5 WVOC, immediately after the games.
There it is. Tune in. Pops Frisbee. Appreciate it. How about a round of applause for Pops? Great stuff, Pops. Appreciate it, man. Good stuff. 843-790-3377. We are taking your questions, comments, calls. We've got you got the camera? We've got Corey Miller coming up in about 20 minutes or so. He'll be out here. Appreciate you, Pops. Again, definitely tune in to the post-game show. Those guys will be manning after each South Carolina football game. It is a very good time. So, again, taking your questions, your comments, everything. If you're here in person, by the way, do not forget the raffle, the giveaway, as you see up here on this small table, humongous picture via my friend Apex Art and Design, Jeremy Smith. The hit would look great, and I'm sure everyone's man cave, living room, office, whatever it might be. We've also got some swag to give away, steel hands, Tin Roof, all that good stuff. Appreciate the folks at Tin Roof for having us out. Like I said, Corey Miller going to join us here shortly. And, great stuff as always, talking with Pops Frisbee. 843-790-3377. Yes, Kevin Schuler did want to point out Tyrese Ross is back for the secondary, the Washington State transfer. So certainly a boost for the guys. Apparently, I think he had COVID. So he was out for the beginning of fall camp, but he is back now. But, certainly that is going to be a position, a question mark for South Carolina, the secondary, if you will. And again, those tuned in digitally, leave your questions, no doubt. But, the secondary, I think South Carolina, call it for what it is. They're going to have a rough go at it when they face teams that can't throw the football and you're not able to get a ton of pressure. I mean, it's just one of those things where, you're not really playing with a loaded deck. But, again, I don't think you can be any worse. We're talking about a secondary that gave up 260 yards per game passing and a season ago and 36 points per game as a whole in the defense. And I think with that defensive line, I think you're going to see guys like Jordan Burke, Zach Pickens, J.J. Nibari, of course, Aaron Sterling, Brad Johnson, Tonka Hemingway. Unfortunately, Rick Sanders is injured, but, Jabari Ellis, those guys, I think you're going to see those guys cause havoc for the most part. And, again, that's somebody asked me today, what do you want to see from the defense this year? And, we all want to see aggressiveness and South Carolina take chances and what have you, but really just seeing the defensive line live up to the hype. That's it. Want to see the defensive line live up to the hype and, cause havoc. That's it, because that's what you're going to have to do to have any type of impact on defense this year for sure, because you're going to have to play defense to win. As much as I think the offense is going to be improved, you're going to have to play defense to win, no question. Justin Langford says, Corey actually played during Todd Ellis's time as a Gamecock. So when he gets here, we'll talk the specific years he was there, but it was late 80s for sure. So, he was with Todd Ellis, the play-by-play man for the Gamecocks. So, and Corey with a lot of great perspective. We had Corey on the show, I think back, probably like 2 years ago. There's been a lot of guys we had on that many people have forgotten. All the time people are asking me, Chris, get this guy on the show, get that guy on the show. And it's like, well, we had him, but it was back episode number 70, and now we're about to hit episode 500 in a couple of weeks. So it's pretty crazy how things have evolved, how far they've come and everything. Like I said, guys, be sure to, if you want to enter the raffle, there are tickets behind that picture. I think Talon behind the bar also, or right at the bar, he's putting his hand up there. He is, yeah. And if you know what, if you don't want to do it now, we're going to pick a winner at the end of the show. So everybody can come up here. Make sure you enter in the raffle. Of course, if you're tuning in digitally, you got to be here in person. So if you're around the city, come on out. Like I said, it's a 16 by 20 frame drawing of the hit. Incredible stuff. A must-have for any Gamecock fan. Like I said, swag to go along with it. It's going to be a simple raffle drawing. I'll reach in there, pick a winner, and yeah, really, really good stuff. Really awesome stuff. So again, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. I got people DMing me about merch right now. Guys, if you are waiting on merch, I promise it is in the mail. It is in the mail. My vendor is slammed right now. Everybody is trying to get their Beamer Ball stuff before kickoff. So if you haven't ordered it yet, you better order it right now, because I think like after today, I don't think I can guarantee it'll get there in time. So, yeah, so the vendor is slammed, which is a positive. It's a very, very good thing. Koozies have been shipped out. If you're waiting on koozies, that next batch has gone out. I wish we had koozies to give away for free, but you guys bought them all, so we're having to get more of them. But we'll have these out at the tailgate and all that good stuff like that. Also, guys, people have been asking about TSUS, our plan for road games this year. Very excited and proud to announce, again, if you did not see it, we'll be out at Carolina Ale House for some watch parties throughout the season. All throughout the state of South Carolina, by the way. So the location in Harbison will be out in Greenville, Somerville, Myrtle Beach, kind of making our rounds across the state and kind of just giving back to those Gamecocks and those local areas, because, of course, not everybody can make it to all the road games, if you will, and really, really excited to do that. He's in the building. I think we should try to get him up here. Corey, you want to come up here now, or you want to wait? You can get a drink if you want. Don't matter to me. You can grab you a water or not a water. I don't know. Yeah, whatever you like. Yeah, take your time. It's no big deal. Again, 843-790-3377. Corey Miller is in the building. I did tell somebody, you're going to notice when Corey walks in, because that's a big SOB. I think he could probably still go play linebacker for us. Yeah, so Kevin Schuler talking about Jordan Birch, saying Birch said today they have the rushers coming inside and outside. I mean, yeah, I think the pass rush, certainly, I'm very excited for Jordan Birch. I think we're going to see the best version of him and a lot of other guys as well. I thought was really interesting is Marcellus Dial was talking about the secondary, and according to he says that right now the starting secondary looks like this. And if I can find the tweet, I will tell you. He says it looks like this. Okay, at the corners, you have, and of course, Cam Smith right now is injured. We're not sure how long he'll be out. Right now, the starting corners, Darius Rush and Marcellus Dial. At the nickel, you have Carlins Platel, who is the Assumption transfer. And at the safeties, you have R.J. Roderick and Jalen Foster. So as of right now, those are your guys you're rolling with. Of course, we're waiting on Cam Smith to get back. We all assumed Karan Prunty would be the guy at the other spot. He is no longer with Gamecocks football. And, of course, you have other guys like Jalen Dickerson and Joey Hunter, Dominic Hill, all that good stuff that I know will factor into that rotation as well. But, Corey, you want to come on up, man? We'll go and get you up here. Corey Miller, former Gamecocks defender, playmaker, was just up at the Panthers training camp today, right? I think I saw that on Twitter. I was just telling them, and I think it's been about 2 years since we had you on the show. It's been quite a while, man. It's great to have you out again. Give it up for Corey Miller. Very excited to chat with Corey. It's been far too long, my friend. Again, appreciate you taking the time. Absolutely, man. So tell people, somebody asked us, we're digitally as well on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff. Somebody asked, of course, you played with Todd Ellis, so you were the late 80s Gamecocks. What years was it specifically?
87.
7, okay.
87 left in 1991.
Okay, gotcha. So it's great to have you on, man.
Yeah.
I love having Gamecocks on from, you know, the different generations, if you would. I think I may have told you this the last time, man, but having Gamecocks on from different generations, from talking to Pops, yourself, you know, talking to guys like Phil Petty and, of course, Connor Shaws of the world and you know, people who, because I really do believe everybody's really important in building this thing and building a program. And without the Corey Millers, you know, you don't have the Kalimba Edwards, and then you don't have the, you know, the other big time defenders, the Jadavion Clowneys. It all builds on itself. So appreciate you, what you did for Gamecocks football, and what you continue to do for South Carolina football. But, hey, we'll talk about your career a little bit also because, again, recruiting was a little different back in the 80s, I feel like. How'd you end up at South Carolina? Again, I believe you are an in-state guy, correct? You're from the state.
Yeah,
yes?
Pageland.
Pageland, South Carolina. And
Yeah.
obviously your son also who went to Alabama and is with the Panthers. We can get to that a little bit later. But the recruiting process for you go to South Carolina, and I guess you played for the late, great Joe Morrison, correct? He was your coach?
Yeah,
How
Joe
did that come
Morrison
about?
was awesome coach. And go back to 85 when I was 84 when I was in high school, getting recruited by South Carolina, Clemson, all the state schools. And of course, being from a town of about 2,500 people, it's kind of impressive, that they come to my little stadium down there, a little 2A school, and found me. But my high school football coach played here at South Carolina. Al Lusher was a linebacker here in the 60s, late 60s, I believe, with South Carolina. And so I always knew about the Gamecocks, obviously. And since I was in middle school, they would always, you're going to play with South Carolina, so they kind of beat that into me and brought me here all the time for games. And I just fell in love with it. I mean, Joe Morrison, Jim Washburn, who was the defensive line coach, recruited me here. This was a fun time back then. They were winning 84. I go back to that magical season that they had. So watching that fire ant defense, I played linebacker, kind of played like 5 positions, but I was very intrigued what Joe Lee Dunn was doing, blitzing a lot, going to hit the quarterback, and that was kind of up my in my wheelhouse, I should say, very aggressive. And so I made, it was kind of no brainer for me. Clemson came at me hard with Danny Ford, and they made it difficult. But at the end of the day, I was very loyal to my coach. Matter of fact, who just passed away about a month ago. I lost Al Lusher, former Gamecock, but he's the main reason I ended up at South Carolina.
Now, for those of us who may not be quite as familiar, I mean, of course, we've heard the stories. I know somebody specifically, and I don't know if I'd be considered the younger generation of Carolina fans, but I didn't grow up on Joe Morrison, didn't know a ton about him. And the man in black, obviously a legend, and unfortunately the way things ended with his health. And, who knows what his career at South Carolina or what even Gamecock football may look like right now had Joe Morrison, not tragically passed away. But just give people an idea, again, for those who, aren't quite as familiar, what was he like? And this is a very different day, different day and age, of course. I mean, we've all heard the stories of Joe Mo and ripping cigs on the sidelines, and it's not quite like that anymore. But no, just obviously a legend in his own right. For sure.
Joe was cool. I mean, he was a player's coach. He played in the league, played with my NFL team, the New York Giants, for a lot of years. And he was black. He always had the long sleeve black. Back in the day, 100 degrees here in Columbia. I mean, 100 up downs. That was our thing at defense. 100 degrees, you do 100 up downs, and Joe will be in the end zone. He's smoking cigarettes and watched practice. He let the coaches do their job. He just kind of was an overseer. He just really didn't get involved in positions and things like that. He just let the coaches coach, but he loved the players. And we, back in the 80s, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Instagram and all these
Thank
different
God,
things.
right? Thank God.
Exactly. So, we go down to 5 points and get in trouble. Nobody knew about it. The police officer would call the coach, right?
Yeah.
So the guys like myself, Ryan Bethea, the Sterling Sharps of the world, we get hung out and did what we kind of wanted to do. And he protected the kids always. And so, but he was cool, man. I mean, he was a player's coach. He was hard on us, expected a lot out of us, but he had your back regardless. And, man, it was very tragic. That's I guess it was in the spring when he passed away of 88, I believe. Yeah. We got that phone call that he had passed away. It was hard. I mean, I almost left because the whole coach staff kind of dispersed, and we got in Sparkywood. That's a whole nother conversation another day. But had he stayed here, I can tell you this: had he stayed here, this program would have done a lot of great things. I mean, because we were top 10 a couple of years anyway, 87, 88. I mean, we were a good football program with a lot of talent, playing some good ball, and when he passed away, things went downhill. But he was a man. I mean, he hung out. The coaches hung out in a little place right over here off Rosewood at the bar. That's where you can find the coaches at night, right? So it was just kind of one of those things that you did, and nobody really cared. Nobody was snapping a picture of you and then tweeting it the next day or the next moment. But they were definitely players, coaches, and we were on our way to doing some great things before he passed away.
I'll tell you, Corey, if there's one Gamecock that I wish I could have watched myself personally in his prime play at South Carolina, it's probably Sterling Sharp. I mean, because when I feel like it's almost unfair, of course, we get in the summer and we get in the list season and we're ranking everything, the top 5 of this at Carolina and that. And, I did top 5 receiver rankings. And, of course, everyone that watched Sterling, and everybody wants to rank Alshon number 1, Sidney, who, Pops played with, Sidney number 1, and those guys certainly deserve to be in the argument. But I mean, Sterling Sharp, you watch the old highlights of him, and he's, just like a gazelle. I mean, just right. And most people agree. I think everybody agrees if he would have stayed healthy in the NFL, he's a no-doubt Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Sterling was still today one of my best friends, and we play golf together. But, yeah, Sterling was incredible. I mean, when you think about the total athlete, I mean, Sterling came here from Glenville, Georgia. He was a quarterback. And but they moved him to wide receiver. When you're talking about pound for pound strength and speed, he was one of the best. I mean, he was strong. I mean, in the weight room, we used to have the iron cocks. I don't know if many guys been around that long. You had to make the iron cocks, and he was consistently one of the iron cocks. But when he got on the football field, there was no one tougher at competing. And he had great hands, ran great routes, smart. He's a very smart guy, understood the game, was a student of the game. And I still think when you go back and you compare Sterling Sharp's stats in the National Football League for 6 years and compare him to, let's just say, Drew Pearson, who just went into the Hall of Fame, they're better.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better stats. So I still think he's a Hall of Famer. I still think at some point in time he's going to get in. But man, playing alongside that dude and just watching how he competed, and it was just amazing. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, I love Sidney. I love Kenny was great. There's a lot of great receivers, Alshon, that have come through the University of South Carolina. But I can promise you this: Ryan Bethea was another kind of under the radar great receiver that we had. But there was no receiver that has played at the University of South Carolina can touch. I can promise you, Sterling Sharp. Yeah. He was a dude. I mean, his number's retired over there for a reason because he was that special.
Yeah, I think what was it? Alshon asked if he could wear the 2 when he came to. Yeah. They were like, no, not quite.
He was like, nah.
Not quite. But it still worked out either way. But so you're a guy obviously had a very successful career after South Carolina as well with the New York Giants and the NFL. And how cool is it for you now to your son Corey Miller, who had a very successful career at Alabama, and he's with the Carolina Panthers, and you're out there watching today. You being able to, and I know the NFL, the league has changed, but you're still able to give him those lessons of what it means to be a professional and to play the game the right way. And because it goes far, I feel like, and again, you can expand far more on this than I can, but being a professional goes far beyond just the field of play. It's about, being a student of the game, carrying yourself the right way. You represent an entire organization when you're off the field. So being able to give him those lessons and kind of share your experience with him, and also you just selfishly as a dad, man, getting to watch your son do his thing at the NFL level. How special is that for you?
It's a blessing. And Christian.
Sorry, my bad. Christian, sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, he was a kid that did it the right way. Watching me come along through my career, a little boy, and I coached him early on, both my sons, and Pop Warner, and going to Spring Valley. He just got it. He became a great player, great pass rusher. Broke Peter Boulware's record at Spring Valley. He holds the sack record now at Spring Valley, but he was the complete kid. And I know a lot has been said about everything here when the Spur era didn't recruit him and all that good stuff, and mad with me because I was on the radio just telling the truth basically. But the bottom line is he's a great kid, and as a father, you support your kid whatever they do, right? You got to support him 100. My dream would have been for him to go play at the stadium. Yeah. That's what I wanted him to do, but there was no way I was going to tell him what to do. But to see him have the success going to Alabama, sitting for 2 years, 3 years before he really got valuable playing time, ultimately becoming a starter and a captain at Alabama. I mean, you think about that in the Nick Saban's era, it's very impressive. And getting his master's degree in 4 years and getting drafted by, our home team, the Carolina Panthers, and watching him grow now. So we have great conversations. We had a great one today after they scrimmaged Baltimore out there going against Lamar Jackson. And, he's just taking it all in. It's totally a blessing. And I was telling one of my little mentees' mother on the way back from Spartanburg that, I'm just grateful as a father, because I wasn't always a great father. I had my things in life that I some potholes, and I wasn't always a great father. And his mother and I got divorced. So my whole goal, since I gave my life to Christ, was to be a great father to my boys, and that's the most important thing that I do. And so going up to watch him and see him out there on the same level that I played on, playing the same position, it fills your heart with joy. I don't care what color that he wore. It's just the fact that that's your son, and God calls me to be a godly father to him, and I'm so proud of him, as well as my other son, Corey Jr., who's doing a great job DJing, But, he's got a great future. And if it wasn't football, I'd still be proud of him,
Yeah.
and so because he's going to be successful in life, man. But I tell you, it just fills my heart. I'm full with joy. Pray for him every day and, talk to him. I don't tell him what to do. I just encourage him when he asks me. But he's been a joy for a father. I've been blessed.
For sure. Now, Corey, of course, we're talking Gamecocks here, but I'm curious, has Christian ever shared any like Nick Saban stories? I mean, again, he's such a polarizing figure, and I mean, maybe I would probably say the best college football coach to ever do it. I mean, certainly you've had your interactions with Saban. I mean, what's he like, man? I feel like
he's a different dude, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's a good person. I mean, I spend a lot of time in his office, and we talk football. He knows Belichick, the whole New York Giant backstory, with defense. So we've had a lot of great conversations, and I love talking ball with him. I mean, he's one of them dudes, kind of like old Ellis Johnson used to be around here. Like, I can sit and talk football with Ellis Johnson forever because they just love it.
Yeah.
And he's the same way, but he is very demanding of his players. He's very demanding of his coaches, everybody involved in this program. He expects excellence. He's the ultimate competitor, but he loves his players. I mean, so Christian loves him. I mean, he's hard on him. I remember the Louisville game years ago. They were playing in Orlando, opening game, and I mean, they were blowing Louisville out by 30 or 40 points. And Christian, those guys trying to pad their sack totals, and Christian jumped offside. I mean, game is over, right? And it was all on ESPN, and Coach Saban just gave him and I laughed. I mean, I cried laughing at him because I'm like, it ain't even about the offside, it's about the point in time of discipline. This could have been an important game, and you jumped offside, could have cost us the game. But he coaches to the end, and it was embarrassing for Christian, but it needed to be done. And so that's really kind of the only altercation. Christian knew from that moment not to do that again. So, but he's a cool cat, man. And that's the reason why he's very successful.
No, for sure. Now, Corey, one of the reasons I'm really excited to get you out here is I said the same thing about Pops, and I'll say it about you. And I love having people that are able to have banter and debate and just talk openly and honestly about South Carolina football and the program and everything, because certainly you do that. Pops does that. Certainly I do that. But I want to talk about, because you were someone that was very vocal at the end of last year, and I will say this to the points you were making about the previous staff and the regime, and I was very surprised. I remember sitting there last summer saying, you know what, we're in a pandemic year. There's no way anybody gets let go, the economic ramifications, all the reason. You just list them all. And I feel like we saw more coaches get fired last year than in a normal year. Like, I almost feel like schools use it as more an excuse to get rid of these coaches. I mean, we saw, of course, Will Muschamp, but you saw Jeremy Pruitt, you saw Gus Malzahn, you saw Derek Mason. How shocked were you, I guess, that South kind of pulled the trigger? Because it's like you can see why, but again, going into the season, I think everybody was convinced. It's like, I tell people it's very easy in April, May, and June to say, oh, it's a gimme year, it's a mulligan. But, when you get in the SEC and that schedule and the heat of it and the emotions start running, it gets a lot harder to sit through a 2-8 season. But, I mean, how shocked were you, I guess, when all that went down?
I was really shocked. I mean, I think, it was hard. I mean, for that whole coaching staff. I mean, I get it. They needed to progress and win and do better. But I thought they should have given them another year just because of what you just alluded to. I mean, it was a tough year on everybody. It was tough on the kids. I mean, COVID testing.
No spring ball. No spring ball, by the way.
No spring ball. Yeah. Everything was hampered because of this pandemic that we're in. So I was saying, I support Will Muschamp. I knew Will very close. I mean, Will recruited Christian. Matter of fact, Christian committed to Florida before he actually went to Alabama. So I've known this guy for a long time, and I'm always the benefit of the doubt looking at the situation. I thought, give him one more year, be demanding. Hey, we got to turn things around. You got to win 8-9 games. Give him some things to say, hey, if you're not going to accomplish these things, then we're moving on. I thought that was the right thing to do, but that was just my opinion. At the end of the day, the fans weren't happy. He lost the fan base. Yeah. People didn't really like his demeanor. Will wasn't a media guy like the guy we have now with Shane. He loves the media. Will was more like on the Saban side, trying to mimic that, but he haven't had the success to be that, right? Yeah. But I thought they pulled the trigger in the wrong direction, in my opinion. But at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, you know, when you play NFL ball, you understand that's how it works. I mean, so what have you done for me lately? SEC football it's like we got to act, we got to move, and they did what they did. And now, looking back, I'm kind of glad because I think the program is trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right now, at least to this point with Shane Beamer, of course, got a lot to prove. But I do like what he's trying to build and the foundation that's being poured for this Gamecock football program. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, I told Will, appreciate what he did. I know what he's trying to do. He wanted to win. You know, when you get paid big bucks, you make tough decisions. You make decisions that you think is right. I thought he made some hiring bad decisions.
Yeah.
Never really had a quarterback to really get established and do the things that he needed to be done. But, you know, that's on him. I mean, you make 3.8, whatever, you know, you're going to live and die by those decisions. So at the end of the day, Ray and the administration did what they had to do, and you just move on. And, you know, my thing is to try to support the next guy. Yeah,
and like I said, Corey, I like the fact that you can come up here, we can have banter, conversation, whatever, because there are differing viewpoints. And I appreciate that, and I like that. And again, you know, you start hearing the same thing over and over. I'm like, all right, I want to hear somebody that kind of has a different vantage point, if you will, than whatever. But obviously, again, we've seen the work, especially that I feel like Shane Beamer, he hasn't just talked it, he's actually done it. I mean, everything that's happened to the preseason, 12 commitments in the month of June. I think we all agree the way he's crushed the preseason. I mean, you couldn't have drawn it up much better. But I know you had a big influence. I was talking to Pops about this. The Letterman had a major influence on Shane Beamer getting the job. And I think there was, a Zoom meeting with like over 100 of you guys. And again, I've talked to many former players who were in that. But when Shane got the job and then going throughout the preseason, like you said, now you're glad. Well, what stood out to you that Coach Beamer has done at this point? You talked about the way he is with the media, and you know, you hate to use the phrase, oh, he wins the press conference, because I do want to point out, maybe you'd be surprised that I'd be the one doing this, but you can't say everything that happened in the Muschamp era was bad. I mean, everything Muschamp did off the field was successful. I mean, they graduated their players. I mean, I thought for the most part he was a likable guy to fans. I thought he was for the most part. Everything they did, recruiting was very successful. Everything they did off the field, they had a lot of success. But like you said, when you're making $4.5 million, you got to win games. That was the one thing they didn't do, and unfortunately, that's the most important part. But for Beamer, what have you liked most so far in his first preseason and getting into fall camp?
You know, I talked with Shane and when he first got here, and to be honest, I was a Chris Rump fan.
Right.
When they was going through the decision, when we had the Zoom calls, I was wanting them to hire Chris Rump. One, a former Gamecock player. As a former player, you know, the coalition that we've had is that over the years that they haven't really paid much attention to the former players, the alumni group, and that has great influence. And, you know, not being invited around, not having the support, you know, so that was an issue. So, you know, my thing was Chris Rump is available. You know, I know him and I know what he's about. So I told Shane, that's who I supported. But you're here, so I'm going to support you. You know, I want to support you, and I want to get the former players back involved. I want the former players to come back around the stadium. I want the former players to help you because, you know, and that was the one thing with Spurrier when I said to him, hey, we could help you. It was no, you know, because now you got a Hall of Fame coach, you got a Heisman winner, you got a national championship coach, and he felt like, I don't need your help. Well, Shane Beamer does, and here's a guy that's never been a head coach. Here's a guy that's never been a coordinator. He gets this job, which South Carolina is a premier job, period. It's in the SEC. It's got one of the greatest fan bases in the country. They sit 83,000 every week. You got one of the top 3 indoor facilities in the country. This is a premier program. So you give it the keys to this Ferrari to Shane Beamer, who's ecstatic about it. And he wants all the help that he can get. So the thing that we talked about was how to build back the former players, how to get them involved. I love the welcome home. You know, we just can't say it. We got to follow it through. And so I can tell you, I've talked with him numerous times. I've talked with the staff, Connor Shaw, to Derek Moore, who's a friend of mine, years before he even got here. How do we get these guys back involved? How can we help this program? How can we help build the foundation and change this culture? And so I can tell you, honestly, he's followed through on every single thing that he said to me. I took a player that I mentor in his office, and I could honestly sit there and tell that family, Shane Beamer, to this point, has never lied to me. He's done everything that he said he would do. And, you know, he's honest. That's been what I've seen with him. He's honest. What you see is what you get. I've been to practices. I watch him. I see how he rolls. I've seen how he recruits because I got several guys that or I mentor that's been recruited. I've seen the process that, one of my guys was the first guy when recruiting opened up that they let in the building. They rolled out the red carpet. I was just really impressed. And everything that he has said, he has followed through with. And I think that's critical. And I think it's critical for the former players that they continue to do this because, listen, one thing I've seen in Alabama and some of the other major programs I had a chance to see is that their alumni group, their former players, their bond and the relationships are amazing. I mean, you got a lot of these guys out here coaching high school kids that's played here probably way before you even thought about that, played with me, played before me, that coach that this school has had no contact with, that's sending players to other major universities. That shouldn't be the case. We should be winning those, so we got to go build that back. He's doing that. I just love his the kiddie-like energy, right? He's like a kid in a candy store. That I got this coaching job, and I love it. I love it, and that's good. Now, at the end of the day, the media relationships, good. Fan relationships, good. You know what the end of the day is going to be, and he knows this. It's the W&Ls.
Results-oriented
all that
business.
Stuff is good.
Results-oriented business.
That fan base will quickly get sour if you're going, 3-9.
Right.
And I think this team is headed in the right direction. But Shane Beamer is a good dude. His staff is excellent. I met all the guys. I have good relationships with them. And I'm happy to say that I'm, as a former Gamecock, to be able to put down the block C again, to be able to go around the program anytime I want to be able to build a relationship with some of the, what I do with mentoring. I build a relationship with some of the players there, helping them, speaking to them. And I think that's a great thing, and I'm excited about the future of what Shane Beamer is doing.
Now, you said Derek Moore is a guy you know really well, right?
Yeah, I actually have Derek Moore on
That
my
dude's a
radio
legend,
show.
by the way.
Yeah,
legend.
He came on my radio show every Wednesday. I would have what I call a faith in football segment when he was at Georgia Tech. And, we talk football, but then I always gave him the floor for 5 minutes at the end to say, hey, man, preach to us. And, man, he would start preaching, man, and, man, I would get so fired up. I'd be wanting to break through the little wall over there at the old radio station, WVOC. And so I've known him for a long time. And so
heck of a football player in his own right in the NFL.
Yeah, he was a great player.
Hell
Played
of a
behind
football
the
player.
greatest running back to ever play the game, Barry Sanders, not Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cowboy fans, but Barry Sanders was the greatest. And he played behind him, played with the Panthers for a year or so. But he is an awesome dude. I watch how he just really works with the players. He loves them and great information. I mean, I had him come over to my church, Shannon Baptist Church, and my men's breakfast group had about 100 men. He came in, he was my speaker. Yeah. And, man, the people loved him. I mean, he just – everything Shane is doing is right. Yeah. I mean, it's like he got the right people, the right pieces. Now we got to recruit. Now you got to develop. Now you got to go out and try to win some football games.
Well, again, you talk about winning football games, and that's what this team will try to do this year in Shane Beamer's first season. Again, you keep up with the program as closely as anyone. When you look at this team, offensively, defensively, I think special teams is something people are not talking enough about. Again, Beamer ball, I mean, literally where it originated from. But for this football team, I think getting to a bowl game in year one, that's the expectations. You set out, of course, anything past 6 or 7 wins is gravy. But, when you look at this team, we'll start offensively. Of course, the running game is the strength. There's questions really everywhere else. And you got 4 or 5 starters back on the offensive line, over 80 career starts. I think people shouldn't look past that. But what are you expecting offensively from South Carolina? Because like you said, Shane Beamer's never been a head coach or coordinator. Marcus Satterfield's never called a play at the Power 5 level. But we do have some indicators of, I think, what they're going to want to do as far as having a quarterback that can beat you both ways. They want to lean on a run game. But what do you expect offensively?
Well, I expect them to run the football, number one. I mean, you got to, Shane has said this, you always play the game to your strength. The worst thing a coach can do is come in and say, you're going to run this system and you're going to do it my way. And if the guys don't have the talent, they don't have the ability to run the system in what you want to run, that's been stupid, right? Yeah. So you got to assess your talent pool, see what you got, and let's devise a scheme and run that. So as I look at this football team, I know what they got. Well, they got a load in the backfield. They got 3 NFL potential guys that can run the football, that can tote the mail. And you got an experienced offensive line that's big and physical. So I think the number one thing is we got to be able to run the football, because here's what's going to happen. If I'm the defense coordinator and I'm game planning South Carolina's offense, I'm going to stack the box. I'm going to play 8 men in the box. I'm going to walk my safety down. I'm a man up on the outside. I'm going to say, I don't see a receiver out there that I feel fearful of. I don't see a receiver out there that I'm afraid to put my corners against one-on-one. Why? Because they're not proven yet. Yeah. So we're going to take away the run, and I got a quarterback in Luke Doty, very athletic. You know, I know he's hurt now, very athletic, but hasn't proven that he can throw the ball down the field and make those critical throws. So that's how teams are going to play them. I promise you, that's what's going to happen. So now you got to do something to get them out of that. You got to do something to get them out of that. How you do that? You got to throw the football. So Luke Doty is not a pocket passer. Luke Doty is not a guy, you know, that's going to sit there and set his feet. So I think the passing game is going to be a quick passing game. You got to take advantage of a guy like Dak Joyner, who's very elusive and athletic. You got to get him the ball in space. You got to motion him, move him around. You know, kind of like what with Debo Sammy, that's what I want to say. With the 49ers, that's how they use him. They move him around him. He's in the slot. He's in the backfield. He's a little bit everywhere. That's the way the passing game got to happen. You got Ortre Smith, who's healthy. He's back, got some experience, but he's not a down-the-field guy. He's a 50-50 ball type guy, big body. So I'm going to run some big routes with him, some little skinny posts. You know, so that's what I see out of his offense. But until they're able to get teams out of 8-man fronts, you know, it might be tough. And you got to get some receivers that can win on the outside. So, you know, that's my biggest concern. I'm not worried about the offensive line. I think they're going to be pretty good. I'm not worried about the running backs. I'm a little concerned about, okay, who's the guy we got on the outside that's going to be able to make plays. Pop knows this as a former receiver. If you can't beat press coverage, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, regardless of how good your offensive line is, if we're going to be bringing pressure and these guys can't get open, you got a problem. So you're going to have a Luke Doty running around trying to improvise, extend plays. But do things that fits his skill set, getting them outside on the perimeter, some boots, some little half rolls, quick throws, give him a run pass option, RPOs. That's going to, I think, be the thing that they do. Shane's going to take that a little bit from Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. He's going to take a little bit from over here, Joe Brady with the Panthers that Satterfield has, and they'll try to improvise to see what works. But initially, I can promise you right now, they're going to see a lot of safeties down in the box, a lot of 8-man fronts, and say, we're going to take away the run, and we're going to dare you to throw the ball to beat us. And so, you know, hopefully that passing game is going to come alive because I think that's going to be crucial to their success.
For sure. Now, you were a defensive guy, obviously a playmaker in your own right, wreaked havoc on offenses. So I'm sure you have to love watching this defensive line work and guys like J.J. Nigbare and I think, you know, Jordan Birch and Zach Pickens and the guy, you can just go down the list of these big-time playmakers. And certainly the defensive line is what you're going to lean on, the Jordan Strawns and the Aaron Sterlings and the Brad Johnsons. And, again, the list goes on and on. Similar, it's interesting. Similar to, you know, the offense, I think the concern on defense is the outside and the back half and the secondary, and that puts even more pressure on your defensive line. But, again, as someone who played the position, as someone who wreaked havoc on opposing offenses, what do you like about those guys up front?
Very aggressive, and I like the scheme. The scheme is attack. Yeah. You know, my thing is I don't like defensive players that read and react. You know, it just slows you down, makes you think too much. Yeah. But when you got an attacking style of defense, which you got guys that can do that on the defensive line, you're going to get after people. You know, you want to penetrate. You always want to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. You want to make them make decisions. Right. You know, you want to dictate what they do. And I think with this defensive line, they got the ability to do that. I think the edge rushers are phenomenal. The kid that came over from Georgia State. Yeah,
strong, yeah.
I saw him at practice. I mean, he's long and lean. Reminds me of my son. I mean, he's fast. He can get off the edge. That's a good thing. I mean, so they got guys that can get up the field. They got inside push with Birch. And you got Zach Pickens, who looks like a freaking stud. I mean, the dude has just changed his body. I'm so pumped up to see how he's going to play. I think he has an NFL career. Jordan Birch, he has to make that next step. You know, I was a little concerned, to be honest with you, about Jordan Birch. You know, coming from Hammond, level of competition. Right. How would he evolve? How would he grow up? And I think he's done that. Boogie's there too. I like Boogie. Yeah. So these guys have grown up. They got a couple years under their belt right now. They're going to be better. But Jordan Birch needs to have a good year. I think he's crucial in their scheme. Yeah. And I think they're going to be fine defensive line-wise. I'm a little concerned about the backers. I'm a little concerned on the back end. I know we got some transfers. I haven't seen enough of them yet to be able to say what I think right now, but I want to be fair to them. Yeah. But I know I can tell you this. The practices that I watch, man, I love what they're doing defensively. I love schematically what they're doing.
Back to the 4-2-5.
I love the energy. And I'm telling you right now, I was on the radio in Charlotte just a few hours ago, and we were talking about this team is going to be better than people think. Yeah. This team is going to be better than what the experts and all the folks are saying nationally, because they don't know. Yeah. They're not at practice. They don't know what happened. They just look at, okay, they got this guy coming back. They don't have this guy, and we're going to make this decision. You know, I've seen it with my own eyes, and I can tell you they're coached up. This team, let me tell you this about these coaches. They coach. Listen, I played a lot of football in my life. I coached a lot of football. They coach their players. Yeah. They develop their players. Coach Lindsey does a great job with the defensive line. The secondary is well coached. They may not have the talent that most people have in the back end right now, but they're going to be well coached.
Dorian Gray.
They'll be in the right positions. They won't make mistakes. The things that we saw with Will Muschamp defense a year ago, we saw a lot of breakdowns. We saw guys running free. We saw, because sometimes you can have a defense that's too difficult. That's what I'm saying. When you got if I got to think so much.
Once you think it's too late.
Right, when I got so much offensively going on, movements and, motions and people. So I got to check. This guy got to check your responsibility changes. And I'm thinking. So if I got all that going on upstairs, I can't be aggressive. So what Coach is doing is making things really simple. Allows things to pre-snap reads and just go play football. And so I think this defense is going to be a lot better, going to be sound. They'll be gap sound. They'll have gap integrity. They'll have great pass rushing lanes. They coach football. And if you can get them to be fundamentally sound, you can have a chance to win some games. And I think that's what we're going to see from this defense. My biggest concern really is just going to be the offense. And can we score some points? It's going to be the end-all, be-all, how good this team can be.
And you got to score points in 2021. It's just the nature of the game. I mean,
you score the most wins.
Right. I mean, absolutely. But you look at like even Bama. I mean, I think Nick Saban, of course, he's evolved in Alabama the way they score, and it was a shootout in the national championship. At least for Alabama, it was. But you mentioned, like you said, you went on radio and you said you think believe this team is going to be a lot better than people think. What does that look like for you? 6 wins, 7 wins?
Yeah,
I'm locked in at 6-6. I'm comfortable with that. I think this team is more than capable of getting to a bowl game. And what say you? What do you think that looks like?
I think that has to be your goal. I mean, my 6-7 wins to me would be phenomenal year one. But you got some chances early, right? You should win game one. Going to East Carolina is not going to be easy.
I think maybe it was a little bit after you, but it's been since the mid to late 90s since South Carolina's been to Greenville, actually. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, we played them about every year I was here, but it was always at home.
Right.
But that won't be an easy game. I think that's be a good tester game because they got a good trigger man up at East Carolina. But listen, South Carolina has talent. That's why the guy asked me, Cal Bailey, today, does South Carolina have talent? Yes. They got talent.
Look at the recruiting rankings in the past 10 years. Right. I mean, there's obviously talent on the roster.
There's some spots, and, you go, okay. But then you always get the surprise. I don't know which freshman are going to step up and be a surprise or which grad transfer or guy from the transfer portal going to step up and be a surprise. And I'm hoping we'll see some of that. But, listen, I just love being around there because I love the energy. You hear Shane say it all the time in his press conference, the energy and the attitude. And that really is good. It's contagious, man. I mean, it really is contagious. And I'm excited about what they can do.
Yeah,
for sure. See what they can do.
For sure. Now, Corey, before I get you again, I want to talk to you about NFL Gamecocks. Again, you were out there today. Panthers practice, J.C. Horn, Shi Smith, a couple NFL Gamecocks. And again, I'm sure that's another bond, like you said, as far as the alums, seeing the NFL Gamecocks do that thing and someone like yourself, what success on that level. What did you see from JC and Shi? And just overall, how proud have you been, again, watching? There's I feel like so many of our guys right now that are balling out in the NFL and doing great things.
It's pretty awesome. I talked to Shi the other day and talked to his father today. And Shi is continuing to impress. Made a great catch or two today in practice doing one-on-ones. JC is just a baller. I mean, the dude is he's confident. His dad, Joe, was at practice today. I mean, he's had a great camp. I'm still waiting to see him play. They set out the first teamers last week against the Colts. So I'm really excited to see him playing when things are real. Dennis Daly's competing in there at the guard position. They have high hopes for him. I think he's a sound football player. And of course, the Connor Charlton is there too. So It's cool to see Gamecocks represent, but it's good for the program.
Yeah.
It really is to tell a kid, a recruit, hey, you can do anything that you want to do at South Carolina. You can accomplish anything you want to accomplish at South Carolina. Most kids say, I want to get to the league. That's what they say. Oh, I want to get to the league.
Yeah.
Okay, 99% of you not going to happen. But for that 1% that gets a chance, you can get it done here. You have every available resource right here at South Carolina. So to see my former Gamecock, my young Gamecock brethren, very impressive.
For sure. Well, Corey, this has been a pleasure, man. Honestly, this is awesome. It'd been, I think, 2 years too long since I had you on the show, and obviously getting your thoughts and everything. And like I said, I know we've been following each other on social media and talking back and forth for quite a while, but it's great to have you on once again. And like I said, I know I can speak for all Gamecocks when we say it was a pleasure watching you do what you did in the Garnet and Black, and obviously your NFL career and the way you've represented the university.
Yeah,
so really excited for this era, man, this new era of Carolina football.
Glad to be back, but to let you know, I was telling you 5 to 7. I'm of course been a preacher now, and I'm on the Christian station starting Monday, 5 to 7.
Yeah, let everybody know. For sure.
97.9. Catch me back on the radio Monday through Friday, 5 to 7. I'll be talking football. We'll talk faith too. Not your typical sports show, but 99% of it is sports.
Yeah.
And then on game day, we'll be on 10 to 12 for a pregame show. So I'm glad to be back. I love sports, and I love getting the stories from Christian athletes' perspective too. So that's kind of be my main handle. But we'll talk a lot of Gamecocks and Panthers, SEC, ACC, whatever. Yeah. We can talk about family, faith. You got it right.
And best of luck to Christian also in his season this year. Looking forward to it. I'm not like a Panthers guy or anything, but
me either. I'm a New York Giant. But
that's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Corey, pleasure, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Hey, give a round of applause. Corey Miller, former Gamecocks, do-it-all defender, punisher to offenses. Appreciate you, Corey, man. Awesome stuff. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. We got about 15 minutes left taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well. So also, we're giving away this beautiful piece up here on the table. My good friend Jeremy Smith of Apex Art and Design, who's sitting right there, that beautiful gentleman right there in the black shirt. He drew this himself. So an incredible piece. As you'll see, it's a lot bigger than the one on the table up here. And it's a lot bigger than the one in my studio, too, which is just, I'm very upset. But no, we're giving this away. Also some swag, Steel Hands, Tin Roof, doing a raffle. We'll pick it right at the end of this. I might have Jeremy reach his hand in there and pick out the winner. I feel like since it's your piece, you should be the one picking the winner. But really great stuff, man. A piece that would look incredible in anybody's man cave, office, studio, whatever. Incredible. You want to gift it to somebody, great for any Gamecock fan. So definitely be sure you're here in person. Make sure you are, partaking in that. Also, if you're tuned in digitally, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, thank you guys so much. 2 incredible guests tonight. Again, it's great to talk, like I said, for Gamecock fans from different generations and get their perspective. And obviously, we're all really excited about the Shane Beamer era, everything happening as we're in the midst of fall camp. Gamecocks did practice this morning. I think that was practice number 11 as we sit now just 17 days away from kickoff. So, again, if you guys have any questions, you can text them, 843-790-3377. If there's anybody out there that wants to call in, we'll take calls. Like I said, we got about 15 minutes left here on this Wednesday, August the 18th. Again, guys, we'll be out here each and every single Wednesday, 5 to 7, all throughout the season. Really looking forward to it. Again, we're getting close. We're getting close. September the 4th against Eastern Illinois. I see some familiar faces in the crowd. Appreciate y'all coming out. Yeah, appreciate the crowd out at Tin Roof. Really great stuff, man. Really happy with how this has been going. And also, we've got Steel Hands in the building. They're doing $4 Steel Hands drafts, I believe. Forgive me, there's another event tonight, I think starting at 8, which it's not the typical open mic night, right? It's something different, correct? Open Jam. See, I wanted to make sure I didn't mess that up. But either way, great stuff happening here at Tin Roof on a Wednesday, and appreciate y'all coming out as well. So tomorrow's show, I will say this, in closing, we got a little bit left. We'll probably go another 10 minutes, and then we'll use the last 5 minutes to do the drawing. I would say we're talking expectations, South Carolina football, how many wins, 6, 7, whatever. And I've locked in 6-6, and even with everything that's happened, I still feel good at 6-6 and making a bowl game in Shane Beamer's first year. I think definitely as long as you take advantage of the front half of the schedule, you beat East Carolina week 2, which I think is the most important game of the season. for many reasons. You take advantage, though. I think getting to a bowl game is very realistic. I will say this, though, because I see a lot of fans with, aspirations and dreams of 7 wins and 8 wins, and God forbid, maybe even more than that. I think what we've seen to this point in fall camp, because it's been a very interesting and in some ways a strange start, an auspicious start to fall camp. Let's just all try to keep perspective. It is year 1. Keep expectations realistic. I think what you've seen to this point, how things have been sort of topsy-turvy from Luke Doty's injury to Zeb Norland, a GA, suiting up and taking snaps, to the Prunty transfer situation, to some injuries on the defensive front, to injuries coming into camp with Cam Smith. I think this is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride type of season as Shane Beamer. Again, we're still getting beyond, I think, the previous regime. I still think we're kind of washing that taste out of our mouths. So I just say to Gamecock fans, again, don't lose that hope, that optimism, that energy, obviously the positive energy, but just keep in mind it is year 1, and Shane Beamer is still trying to put the pieces together and build this thing. So, all right, looks like we got a call. We'll jump to the phone lines here real quick. All right, cool. All right, John, you're on the air. You're live at Tin Roof. What's up, John? What's going on?
Good. I just want to call in because this is on my mind the last few days. I just want to say, I guess this is to all Gamecock Nation, and I know Chris has said this, give Shane Beamer some time. I know we were ready to run off the last head coach, and who was actually, I hate to say this, proven, I guess, in a way at Florida, even though we couldn't win at Florida. And to be honest, I don't know why we hired a guy, looking back on it now, why we hired a guy that couldn't win at Florida and why we thought he could win it with us. But anyway, I hope everyone realizes, give Shane some time. Because it ain't going to be, I think me and Chris feel the same way. This is not going to be fixed in 1 year.
I think that's well said, John. Very good stuff. John, appreciate the call, man. Yeah, no, I agree. No, he made his point. Give Shane Beamer time. Be patient. And I think most Gamecock fans are realistic. I don't think there's a lot of Gamecock fans out there that are, holding Shane Beamer to the fire. And, if you don't win 8 games in year 1, you're just no good a head coach. No, I think most people understand this is a process, and it's going to take a few years, and you need to let Shane Beamer stack classes on classes on classes and let him build and let him recruit. As Corey said, as Pop said, it all comes down to recruiting. You have to have the Jimmies and Joes. Listen, Shane Beamer is a football coach. He's not a miracle worker. So, we're going to find out this year about some guys on the roster, and I think there's definitely guys on this roster that you're going to get the most out of. And we're going to see guys say, man, it really was coaching, and they were underutilized, and they were underdeveloped. But I think there probably are some guys on the roster that they just kind of are who they are. Call it for what it is. A coach can only do so much, right? He can only do so much. And so, again, Shane Beamer, Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White, they are coaches. They are not miracle workers. So it all comes down to recruiting. It all comes down, when we're talking to Corey Miller, we're talking about Alabama. And when you watch Alabama, they just have better players than everybody. It's Nick Saban's a great coach. The culture's great. Take none of that away. Hey, that team in the upstate, they just have really good players. It doesn't come down to, I don't think anybody thinks Dabo Swinney's a genius. You know what I mean? So you got to go get good football players, and I think they've already started to do that, obviously, in recruiting and, what he's doing, where they're ranked right now. And you just saw the 2024 rankings for recruiting come out today, and the number 1 prospect in the 2024 class nationally is from Fort Mill, South Carolina. He's a quarterback. It's a guy you got to probably go grab if you're South Carolina. That's a guy you got to keep in state. That's a guy if you're Shane Beamer, you got to go sell him on your program and keep him at home. And it's those type of guys that are going to change your program. Similar to what you saw Spurrier do with the Clowneys and the Gilmores and the Alshons and the Lattimores, keeping those guys at home, if you will. That's what changes your program, man. Again, you got to have the right coach to build the culture and do all that, but you got to get those players too. So, yeah, definitely have patience. Again, good point, John. I appreciate you calling in. Definitely have patience. Give Shane Beamer time, and I think if we do that, we will be happy with the final results. Again, 843-790-3377. Somebody asked opinions on the new quarterback, Zeb Norland. And a lot of you are probably like, who on God's green earth is Zeb Norland? So in case you missed it, with Luke Doty's injury over the weekend, him not being available right now throughout all of practice and for the first game, Zeb Norland, who was a GA, was not even on the roster as of, 2 weeks ago, taking snaps yesterday, today, for the rest of fall camp at quarterback. This is a guy that played at Iowa State and then went to North Dakota State and was Trey Lance's backup, who was taken in the NFL draft. So you go watch his film and his tape, he can spin it. Now, I've seen a lot of chatter on social media, and I've had people texting me, man, do you think this Zeb Norland dude's legit? Is he going to be a baller? Come on. The guy wasn't even on the roster to start fall camp. Let's just call it for what it is. If Zeb Norland ever touches the field at Williams-Brice, I will be shocked. I'll be shocked. I truly will. I hope he proves me wrong and he goes and throws for 5,000 yards and, he's all SEC, wins the Heisman, whatever. But if he was that good of a quarterback, why on God's green earth was he a GA and not on the roster? I'm just calling for what it is, right? So Shane, and you have to go off what Shane Beamer said too. Shane Beamer literally himself said, hey, we need bodies, we need depth. We only have 3 quarterbacks working out right now. And he made the point that at Oklahoma last year and at Georgia when he worked there, they had 6 or 7 quarterbacks working out at this time. So, Zeb Norland, respected, glad he's able to suit up. Hey, maybe he can push those guys. And like I said, what's crazy is I was watching some of his highlights when Iowa State played Oklahoma, the game that Shane Beamer had mentioned, and Zeb Norland played really well. He can spin it. But to expect Zeb Norland to come in and actually compete for playing time and to be the starter, God forbid, I'd be totally shocked. I'd be totally shocked. I mean, I think there's a better chance of Dak Joyner being the starting quarterback, feel my honest opinion. So, which I know a lot of us probably wouldn't mind. So again, 843-790-3377. I see a lot of questions here I think we may have missed. Again, guys, apologize if we did not get to your questions. Christopher Day says, hopefully Darius Rush gets his chance. Muschamp talked him up quite a bit last summer as leading the DBs and INTs during the practices. Yeah, right now Darius Rush is a starting defensive back, and I've actually met Darius in person. Awesome kid. Not a bad golfer, by the way. Darius is a good kid, man, and somebody who's gone back and forth between positions. Was at wide receiver, DB, then back to wide receiver, then back to DB. I think being at one position is certainly going to help him, and hopefully he can give you something, really give you a presence on the outside of the defensive back position, because certainly that's going to be a major, major question mark. And as of right now, you got to call it what it is. It's a deficiency, and they'll prove it otherwise, man. It's a major, major, at least nationally, people look at that secondary and say, man, you lost JC, you lost Izzy, you gave up 260 yards per game passing. What's it going to look like? Who knows? So, I think Darius can be a good player. You need to get Cam Smith back. I think he's your number one option at defensive back, most certainly. You've got to get Cam Smith back healthy. How long is he out? I'm not 100% sure, but you got to get him back healthy. And then you got to have guys like R.J. Roderick, Jalen Dickerson, Joey Hunter, Dominic Hill, O'Donnell Fortune, David Spalding. They got to just step up and be players. I mean, bottom line, you have what you have right now, what to work with. It's not like wide receiver where you can play 2 and 3 sets and just have a couple of guys. You're going to have to play, you're in a 4-2-5. You got to have 5 guys step up. And I think really depth is the only concern. Starting 22, I feel good about. But overall depth, this team can't afford injuries like we're seeing at Cam Smith. It can't afford injuries like we're seeing at Rick Sandage. It can't afford injuries on the offensive side. So keeping guys healthy is going to be priority number one. I'll be interested to see, honestly, from the coaching side of things, how does Shane Beamer manage that? How does he manage that early in the season? Because the thing you don't want to do is overuse guys and get them worn out early in the season. And when you get later in season, you are seeing injuries pop up. And if for whatever reason we have just been snake bitten the last 5-6 years when it comes to injuries. And we saw that with Luke Doty. I don't know if there's something in the Columbia water, Kirk, but something, Frank Martin said it too. I think there's something in the water in Columbia where all of our guys just seem to get hurt. Our key guys, by the way, get hurt. So I don't know. I think Kirk might have some wanted posters made, whoever stepped on Luke Doty's foot. We're trying to figure that out. But no, seriously, you got to keep everybody healthy. That's a no-brainer. It's no doubt. This first year, the depth or lack thereof is a question mark. But there is talent on this team. Just like Corey said, like Pop said, there's talent on this team. And I think getting to a bowl game, getting 6 wins, it's very possible. It's realistic. But, week 2, that to me is the one that stands out. Week 2 at East Carolina, you beat East Carolina, and I think all your dreams and hopes and aspirations of getting to 6 or more wins, they're still on the table. You lose week 2 to East Carolina, it's murky. What's up? I don't know that East Carolina, they're not like world beaters necessarily. Well, and I'll tell you though, I broke down East Carolina way back in June. 20 of 22 starters back. They have a junior quarterback, veteran quarterback, and Holt Nailers. They've got a fantastic running back. And again, this is against their schedule last year. So they don't play in the SEC, right? But just going off what the stats tell you. And their running back, by the way, is from the state of South Carolina. And the game he said he was most looking forward to this season was South Carolina. Like, what worries me, it's not so much that East Carolina is this group of world beaters. It's just the fact that we have so many question marks. And I do think, honestly, at the skill positions, especially offensively, they're just as good as us. I really believe that. Because the difference in levels, it's the line of scrimmage. It's the line of scrimmage. Where Carolina, if they're going to beat ECU and beat them handily, if they're going to beat them handily, it's going to be running the football. ECU last year gave up 201 yards per game on the ground to their schedule. Yeah, so Kevin Harris, Marshawn Lloyd should have a field day. I mean, if you can put together any semblance of a passing game and just make ECU defensively, they were not good on defense. They gave up like 35 points per game to their schedule. So if you can just have any semblance of balance, I think you should be able to move the football. But it just feels like one of those games, dude, on the road. It'll be a packed Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. Their fans are crazy, rowdy. Again, I'm not anointing ECU as they would be the second or third best team in the SEC East. But I just think for South Carolina, year one of Shane Beamer, and I'll tell you this right now, and this is something that hadn't come out, but I was talking to a good buddy of mine that works for 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, whatever, and he's friends with a lot of Vegas sharps, guys that make lines. They said right now that game would be a pick 'em. That game's a pick 'em, betting-wise. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of people that pick ECU to win because of the question marks for South Carolina. Now, I picked us to win. I think South Carolina will win the football game. It's just a game, though, you can't sleep on. You know what I mean? It's a game you should win. No doubt. You should win. Just don't mess around and lose, because if you do, the whole complexion of your season changes. So I'm not trying to anoint East Carolina as the second coming or like Alabama. It's not like you're playing Georgia 2 weeks in a row, but just make sure you go out there and take care of your business, run the football. Hopefully defensively you're able to get after Holt Nailers and make him make some mistakes. Hey, you do that, I hope this conversation looks foolish and we win by 28, but we're Gamecock fans and we know better than to think we're just going to roll our helmets out there and beat somebody like that. So, you know what I mean? So, hey, the last time South Carolina played a team not in the Power 5, their name was Appalachian State and we lost. So don't take anybody lightly. That's all I'm trying to say. So you take care of ECU, though. You got Georgia week 3. It's a wild card. Nobody will expect you to win. But winning 6 or 7 games will still be on the table. Starting at minimum 4-3, 5-2, it'll still be on the table. I'm just saying, you lose the ECU, you're fighting to get to 5 wins at that point. You just are. You know what I mean? And your confidence is shot. The momentum is shot. Everything. So, because I've said, and in closing, we'll get out of here and then we'll do our giveaway. Number 1 goal for Shane Beamer, yeah, the wins are great. Getting to a bowl game's great. I don't care if you win 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 games. The number 1 goal for Shane Beamer, get to this point or get to next year's preseason with the same momentum and positive energy you have right now. If you can just find a way to do that and keep people excited about the direction of the program, that bleeds into the fan base, it bleeds into recruiting, and you can continue to build your program in a positive trajectory and stack good classes on good classes. Again, hypothetically, I'd rather go 5-7 but be competitive in the other 7 games than go 6-6 and get blown out. Show progress in the program. That's what we all want to see. But either way, bottom line, as Luke Doty said, the over under Vegas 3.5, smash the over because Vegas has no clue what they're talking about. Over 3.5 is the play. All right, cool. We're going to wrap it up. It is 7 o'clock or right at 7 o'clock. We're going to get out of here. Again, thank you guys all so much for coming out to Tin Roof. Appreciate you all. We're going to do the giveaway now. I hope everybody knew how to participate in this. I think Talon and the guys behind the bar have been taking care of it. Make sure you tip your bartenders, by the way. We've got the Steel Hand special. The drafts are $4. I believe they're still doing $3 drafts that aren't Steel Hands. $10 wings as well. And again, like I said, if it's your first time out, thank you all so much for coming out. We'll be out here live each and every single Wednesday, 5 to 7 at Tin Roof in the Vista. So I don't know. How do we want to do this giveaway? What do we want to do? Let's see. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do it. Jeremy, you want to do it? Let's go do the giveaway. We'll come up here. That's all that's going to enter? Yeah. We'll take
Just go like pull one out and say the name. Everybody knows they had to be here.
All right, last call. If you want to get in on this, try to win the, I guess I can just sit down. You want to try to win the drawing? It's cut off? Yes, all the swag, all of it. Yes. Yes. I think we're good. Oh, there we go. We're good. We're good. No more last takers. Talon, you want to throw an extra ticket in there? No, I'm kidding. If Tin Roof wins, it doesn't count. Doesn't count. So, again, this is Jeremy Smith. The reason he's picking, he is the man that drew that picture you were looking at. So I figured, give a round of applause to Jeremy. Apex Art and Design. ApexArtandDesign.com. You can get that and many more. He's got The Hit. He's got Kevin Harris, Wes Clark, Connor Shaw, Jadeveon Clowney's The Hit. All kinds of pieces. Does incredible work. Appreciate you, Jeremy. Without further ado, man, we'll go ahead and pick it, swirl it up, pick a winner. Let's do it.
Okay, we got Ashley Hamill.
Ashley Hamill. Ashley Hamill, congratulations. Congratulations to Ashley Hamill. You have won the, well, now you do. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great stuff. And again, Jeremy Smith, thank you. Appreciate Tin Roof, Steel Hands for collaborating, putting this all together. You know, awesome stuff, man. We love giving back to Gamecock fans. So, again, appreciate y'all coming out. Again, stay out here for the, I'm going to butcher it again, Blues Band Jam. Whatever, yeah. Blues Band Jam. All right, cool. Appreciate y'all. I'm Chris Phillips, the Spurs Up Show. I'm out. We'll see y'all next week. Appreciate it.